Okay, looks like it's working. The chair is going to call the Single Family Design Board meeting to order for Monday, August 22nd, 2016. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the board on anything not on today's agenda? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for approval of our minutes. And let's go to approval of the board minutes of our August 8th, 2016 meeting. And if I get that right here, let me, well, first of all, do I have a motion for approval?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, let's go through each item, see if there's any comments or corrections. Item number 1, 3435 Marina Drive. Comments or corrections? Item number 2, 210 La Vista Grande. Items or corrections? Item number 3, 566 Arroyo Avenue. Item number 4, 1631 Shoreline Drive. Item number 5, 1035 Coyote Road. Item number 6, 1120 Lunita Plaza. Hearing no comments or questions, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to the consent calendar for August 15th, 2016. Katie, if you could go through those, please.
The minutes for the August 15th meeting are as follows. Item A, 2001 Stanwood Drive was continued 1 week at the applicant's request. The item was not reviewed as the applicant postponed. And item B, 201 Eucalyptus Hill Road received final approval as submitted.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
I think I should abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay, this is consent calendar. You weren't on consent.
Okay. I wasn't there either.
Okay. Well, yeah, there's only 2 of us there. So, okay. Shall I take the vote again just to be sure? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, let's go to a consent calendar for this morning, August 22nd.
The minutes for the August 22nd consent calendar are as follows. Item A, 2001 Stanwood Drive received final approval of review after final for the proposed laundry room addition and relocation. All of the other review after final items have been continued to the full board. Item B, 108 Mohawk Road received final approval of review after final items. And item C, 38 Santa Ynez Street, was continued indefinitely to the consent review with comments.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make that motion. I need to make a comment.
Okay, let's get a motion and a second on the floor, and then we can go to comments. So I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. There's a motion and a second. Mr. Miller,
Yeah,
comments?
I'd just like to say that I've had a conversation with Mr. Sweeney regarding this project, as has gone before us before, with several changes. This is one project that had one style of I guess it was a Cape Cod style, and it was changed to a Spanish style, and they did it and came before us after the fact. So just wanted to say we've had a conversation about it.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. Questions? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to Announcements. Katie, do we have anything on staff?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. No subcommittee reports. On announcements, I think that Katie or Kathleen, I don't remember, one of you sent us notice of the meeting next Monday, the 29th, I believe it is?
The 6th is a special meeting.
The 6th?
The next full board meeting is September 6th, and it'll be a Tuesday meeting since the 5th is
Right, for us. But no, there was a notice regarding the new zoning ordinance workshop. I think that's on the 29th, if anybody's interested in attending. It's in the morning. I've started to go through it. It's quite lengthy. In my view, there's a lot of items on there things that we're continually having to contend with in terms of parking and driveways and setbacks and all those kind of things we kind of struggle with. So I don't know if I'll be able to attend all of it, but I will try to go to some of it and take a look at it.
Right.
Okay. So if anybody else is interested, it's on. I think we've got a whole packet online. You can look at it, or you can go to the website and look at it. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. Then let's go to our first item, which is 1534 La Cornelia Drive. Do we have applicant here?
Where's Bill?
Can you call and see if he's headed our way?
3:20, but he's supposed to be here any day.
No response? Okay. I'm going to go to the board. What's the pleasure of the board? This project is here for final approval. So it's a project we've seen and obviously given a project design approval. So given it's here for final, we generally go through every sheet anyway. So would you like to go ahead and start, and then hopefully the applicant will show up before we have to take action?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just take sheet by sheet. So 0 is all the city requirements, and 2 is...
Were there any comments from last time?
Were there any comments?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We're out of order here. Go ahead.
Number 1, the board has positive comments regarding the project's consistency in appearance, quality of architecture and materials, and adherence to the Good Neighbor guidelines. Number 4, the FAR is acceptable relative to the outline of house being compatible with the neighboring homes in context of the footprint. Number 3, any paving or hardscape over the sewer easement will require review and approval by Public Works. Action taken by Motisha, seconded by Woolery. It was passed unanimously.
Okay, all right. So we may have to ask the applicant about the paving part. So let's go through that. So A1. A2. Okay, yeah, this is the one with the yard. A3. Roof plan. Elevations. Sections. Sections. New schedule. C3. So here is the site, and the question was, any pavement or hardscape over the sewer easement will require approval by building department.
I do have a question, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. A7,
A7, excuse me. Go back to A7.
I don't quite
Yes, sir.
recall that round window being quite that big.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of bothers me a little bit. So let's see if we can get a comment to the applicant when he gets here. Okay. What I'm,
Review and approve the landscaping?
I believe we did at design approval, but we'll go to the landscape plan in a minute. I'm looking at the sewer easement. I was trying to find it, but I don't see it.
What happened to Bill?
That's a good question. I should be here right now, or
Okay.
be here quarter after. Sorry about that.
Okay, we just almost got to the landscape plan, but I'm looking for the sewer easement that you all had to deal with. Do you remember what that is?
It's along the back of the 10-foot stretch.
This guy?
right here.
Okay,
Right there.
right.
Oh,
okay.
this one. This
Yeah.
is the sewer easement.
Right.
This
And
is
so
sewer
the
easement.
comment was, any paving or hardscape on the sewer easement will be required to have or approval by the Public Works Department. So you have,
How we would address that.
okay?
Excuse me, if we could just have him state it, your name for the
Yes,
record.
I'm sorry.
Sam Mapus, landscape architect on the project.
That's,
Sorry.
thing's not on.
Sam Mapus, I'm the landscape architect for the.
So it shows a spa sitting in the sewer easement. So could you explain, please?
So, if you look at the plan, you probably have in the back, but this landscape plan shows the 10-foot easement is right here, and these are two 5-foot pieces of paving. So they're big paver pads. That 10-foot easement is right through here, and the jacuzzi spa is behind it.
So you have,
So it's on the north side of that easement.
okay, because you have a drawing that doesn't work here.
Shows it not in the right place, maybe.
Well, yeah, so let's go to it, so we'll look at it real quick. Because on this A1.1 sheet, it's showing it right there.
Okay, well, that's too close to the house, and you can see on my plan, it's in this same
So that needs to
location,
get
but out there.
corrected,
Okay.
okay? So if someone want to make a note of that, if we choose to give this final approval, it's going to have to be final approval with a comment to staff to get this drawing corrected on sheet A1.1. Okay, was there anything else? So did Public Works bless this material on there?
I have not run this by them, but the design was such that these two 5-foot
Yeah.
pieces of paving could be cut, removed, and they could get in and
Okay.
do anything that they need to. The future was thought about.
And the only reason I say that is our comment from our last review is any paving or hardscape over the sewer easement will require review and approval by Public Works. So that's why I'm
We'll
asking.
need to walk through and do that with them, because I do not have a formal letter about it, but
Okay,
the design accounts for it.
okay. Then let me come back to you. We were just going through the whole set because this is here for final approval.
Right.
So we do have an architectural question on sheet A7. I'll wait for Bill to get here.
Text him right now. Bill, you're on. Get in here.
Walking in from outside.
Ryan just put a horse collar on him.
Okay. C3
Hey, you're in the hot seat, not me.
and 1.
You don't like that? No, I could tag team with you, but you've got answers I don't.
Okay. We started without you only because we want to
Yeah, move things ahead. Appreciate
move things
that.
on. But we did come up with a couple of questions
Okay, sure.
to start with. And I'm going to use that drawing.
Okay.
You have an A1 sheet.
Yes.
In our last review, an item came up with regards to how the sewer easement was being treated. And our comment was any paving or hardscape over the sewer easement will be required to review and approval by Public Works. So did that happen?
We've talked with Public Works, try to determine, let's look at my site plan, because that's kind of the...
So you have a spa showing there, and he's got the spa showing out of there.
That's actually old. That was an existing spa from the original survey, so that is not there.
Okay, so that needs
Obviously.
corrected.
This was the one we had in question. We've asked the Public Works. They couldn't find any record of it. So best estimate at this point in time, unless we hear otherwise, there's nothing going on there. This one here, the 10-foot easement.
Yeah, you have
is
paving over the top of it.
Right, exactly.
So is that okay with Public Works?
I talked with Dave Shoemaker, and he didn't have any concern with it. So,
Okay.
So,
All right, so we've made a note, and if we choose to give this final approval, then this sheet will have to get corrected.
okay, yeah, sure.
And then one of our members had a question, I think two of our members had a question on sheet A7 with regards to that window.
Yeah, so that window really, if you're concerned about its aesthetic, can't be seen really anywhere. If I look at the site plan here, I'll show you the position of that, where it sits. Let's look at this plan here. It sits right there. There's a retaining wall existing that comes around here. This house, there's a lot of landscaping. Probably Sam showed you what he had planting-wise against here. And their house actually kind of sits back in here, so they would be the only ones to see it, and I think it's going to be heavily screened by plant material. So aesthetically, it's not seen from the street, nor from the view, or from this side.
Okay.
The only spot would be that end.
I think it wasn't a question who sees it.
Oh.
We're just looking at it saying
Oh.
proportionally it looks weird.
Well, it's at the end.
It's like you want to
I
get
know.
it
Well,
proportionally down.
it's actually at the end of the hall. So when you walk in the entry,
I
you
know.
turn to the right, and it's like this thing, and we're gonna
We have a
have
focal
like
point sculpture that's at the end
I
of the
understand,
outside,
just
so
look,
it has
it
a very...
looks,
it's big.
everything else is so nicely
Sightline.
proportioned, that looks strange.
It's
It
large.
pops out at you.
Yeah.
So that's the only
It's
reason
art.
we brought it up.
it is.
Well,
I mean, it's
whatever.
like a
It's
decorative.
accentuating.
I'm
It was-
I'm sorry,
Very
it just doesn't
Yeah,
jive
that's
with
okay.
the,
Yeah.
everything else is done so nicely,
Yeah.
and then you have that window. But,
We
okay,
gotta have something.
let's
We
go
can't be
through.
perfect. Right?
8, got sections,
Sections, schedules.
schedules,
Oh,
C-sheets.
really quickly,
Do we
I'm
have a
sorry.
change?
Yeah, I did. We made a modification to the back elevation. I've got the.
It's bigger now.
Bigger. The window's bigger. No, same. That's all the same.
Yeah.
The only thing we did was we changed this. It had a.
So what does it look like? Wait a minute,
Yeah.
Let me go back to A7.
It's better, of course.
you see that?
Okay, so that's
So
what
that's
you
what
had.
it was, and this is what we have now. So it's 2 doors with a fixed panel, and then we divided these into 3 window units.
So is this width the same?
It's actually a little wider. It's about 24 inches wider
Okay.
than that. So a foot and a foot went on either side. So, yeah.
All right, okay.
And that reflects in the floor plan too, with the copies here.
So then we were going through the C sheets,
Yeah, we got our civil,
and then we got D
worked out all our
sheets, details.
stone veneer, windows and doors. We've got colors as well to show you lighting.
Did you already give us the color board?
No, we did not.
All right, well, let me come back
Yeah.
to that in a minute. Let's just get through the drawings. Okay, so,
I might
Mr.
have you
Chair, it'll
clarify
also need to
something.
meet Tier 3 SWIP compliance.
yeah, and I think we're getting to that somewhere.
Okay.
It gets down to one of the sheets here. Okay, so those are details,
Yeah, fireplace outside.
details.
There's the trellis and lattice, or the lanai, that is, with the fireplace. There's our electrical power lighting, if you want to see the next sheet there.
And we have,
We got a fixture, might be,
oops,
there's a fixture, that's a fixture, yeah, you see that, and we got them kind of scattered. They're LED mounted up inside the shroud.
okay, that's
Low
interior.
wattage. And then structural.
Structural, I'm going to skip all of those and go to, right.
So you presented yours on
No, yet, no,
Oh,
we just
okay,
got a
okay,
couple
all right.
questions
Okay.
about the spa and the easement.
so anything else you need to share with us on the landscape?
Do you have anything that,
The stormwater management is part of a retention basin here on the slope. There's a section that shows how that works. So that is below and will be planted out on this slope. This is planted out heavily if you look at the landscape plan. This is a small little terrace that keeps the wall heights right for this little patio that's sunken. All this is planted, again, all planted throughout the front area with large oak trees to kind of mirror what we were already seeing there. That was the same as what we presented in our preliminary. Again, as Bill mentioned, this whole planter over here is meant to be very heavily planted because there's a two-story right here, so the privacy is mutually beneficial. Other than that, there are just more details of planting and irrigation and some lighting that we've worked out. Mostly path lighting, walk lighting, safety lighting.
Stormwater tier you had to meet?
Tier 3.
Tier 3.
Yeah. Yeah, so we had, retention.
And is that
essentially.
reflected also on the civil drawings?
Yes. Yeah.
There's a section there that shows how that works. I don't know what sheet it is. Do you, Bill?
It's like C2 and 3, I think. Unless it's out of order. I think it was after, let's see. Maybe you had C's after the
I saw them
A's.
in here.
Sometimes you end up after the detail sheets, too. So.
E, D, E. Nope. Keep going back. Let's see some spreadsheets there. Where'd it go?
Listed on there.
They're in here because I saw them, but they're not on your deck. They're not on the list.
That'll be a plan check before I get it. Did you go back after the D's there? Oh, E, G, D, S. Not at the end. Okay, well, where'd they go?
I saw them in here because they're smaller than your regular sheets.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I went after these, I think, maybe. Here we go. There we go.
All right, so there it is right
Yep,
here.
Yep.
Okay.
Here's the.
Yeah, there's this cross section of it there. Here's this squished
Right.
section version of it.
That shows how it's
Okay,
retaining
so
on the side.
basically all the
on the
water is
side.
going to here.
Yeah. Yep. Filters
Right.
through and then percolates out from there.
Okay, anything else of color board?
Yeah, color board. Well, I'm going to let Layla maybe explain some of these. Of course, the simplest, obviously, our window frame. It's going to be a dark, really a black ebony color, Marvin material. And then we've got a flat roof over the lanai, which is a very small portion, which is that. Our roof material.
Right next to the gravel.
Oh, there's the roof right there. Around. The stone siding that we've got on the rotunda, the entry there
And the
is gonna
garage.
be- and the garage is going to be that.
Okay.
Trim is that black alder,
Which is also that sample that's right by your finger.
Oh, this right
so
there,
That's the
yeah,
paint
yeah.
sample. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
custom one, so I
Right.
just had to kind
Yeah.
of do it.
Okay.
And then the body of the building, is this the Nichiha painted? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's
Which is-
actually how it looks flat. I actually have samples if you want, actual
Okay.
samples if you want to see that, how that reads. But it's kind of an edamame green base with a black alder glaze over it.
Okay.
And it's got a shingle texture to it.
Yeah.
So it's like hardy, it's just
It's a relief, almost like a sandblast.
looks like a raised grain material.
Right.
Yeah, and then what do we have over here? Garage door, and then we've got copper on the roof. The entry roof is a copper, true copper.
And your gutters are
I
copper?
believe we have copper on the gutters too. Yeah.
Right.
I've got that schedule on the.
And your fireplace chimneys have a different stone pattern on the drawings?
No,
Or
they're
is it the
supposed to
same?
be all the
Supposed to be
same.
the same.
All the stone will be the same.
So it's
to
all this
match.
Eldorado?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So do you have a copy of that for files?
Yeah, I think this is for them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. She took a
All
photo.
right. Anything else you need to share with us?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Before we go to questions or comments from the board, is there anyone in the public wishing to address this project? Katie, did we receive any written correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close it to public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions? This is here for final approval. Yes.
I have one picky question. Did we discuss Nacella tenuissima on the landscape plan last time? because,
Sitting at one terrace right below the patio.
there is
She's
quite
talking about the Mexican feather grass that we have in this
Texas, yeah.
right there.
It's right in here.
it's pretty invasive, so that, everything looks great. That's an invasive species. You might consider changing it to another grass. Otherwise,
We can do that. That grass area is kind of a design theme to kind of create almost a moving river of grass. So we can look at an option.
a lot of good options.
Sure is.
There.
These days, there's
Just
a
don't
lot
want
of
to be
options.
pulling it out of every planter on your whole property.
Tends to jump, doesn't it?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, no further questions. Let's go to comments. Anyone have comments?
I have no comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay. If there are no comments, then the chair would look for a motion. There are some technical comments that I think should probably be placed in any motion that would be for approval of final.
One of them's the sewer easement. What was the other one?
A11.
Right.
Move the spa out of that.
Okay.
Correct the spa location
The spa location,
on A1. Sheet A1.
right. Okay. And then reconsider the grass material in the one planter. And I think that was
Okay.
the.
All right, I'll
both
make
of
a
the
motion.
plans. Okay.
I move to give this project for project design approval and final approval with following findings or comments first. That the with the following conditions: that on sheet A 1.1 that the sewer easement be clarified and adjusted appropriately, and correct the spa location. Also, on the landscape, reconsider the grass material in the planter, in one of the planters along the driveway, I guess.
No, it's on the back.
On the back?
The Mexican feather grass.
Reconsider the Mexican feather grass along the back. Otherwise, the consistency and appearance of the proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city. Compatibility is with size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and neighborhood. The quality of architecture and materials of the proposed buildings are appropriate to the natural appearance, and that is my motion.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
One more thing, and they
Yes.
follow good neighbor guidelines.
Okay. That's part of the motion. Acceptable to the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? Okay. Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay. We're off to the building department.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You can have this too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to go to item number 2, 1530 Shoreline Drive. While that's being placed out, I notice there's a few folks sitting in the audience, and all the remaining items we have today are what we call new items. So I want to share with you the procedure. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address any of these items, we request that you fill out a little yellow slip over there along the wall. Put your name on it and address. If you want to speak to any one of the items that's on the agenda. What will occur is, as you saw a minute ago, the board sees the drawings. In this case, we'll see the drawings for the very first time. We'll look at them. The presentation will be made by the applicant. And then once we do that, I will open it up for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address it can come forward. And then I'll close public hearing, and after that, the discussion is to the board. Not all of these items will take action today. Some of them we'll only make comments, and they'll be returning to us for other actions. So do we have the applicant for 1430 Shoreline Drive, please? 1530, sorry. 1530 Shoreline Drive.
Waiting for a representative. I'm the homeowner,
Okay.
and
Okay. Well, we can get started. Your people are supposed to be here 15, 20 minutes before
Yes.
this meeting starts. So if you'll sit down and we can
I'll
get.
do the best
let's
I
get
can.
started. Okay.
Just to jump
We
home.
need to, if we need to wait, we'll wait, but
paying the bills.
it helps the board to stay on schedule.
All right, I'm going to do the best I can. I've never done this before.
All right,
so bear
I
with
have to
me.
do a couple of things first, and then I'm going to ask you to describe your project, but maybe your fellow will get here by the time
Okay.
we get started. So this is a new item, so I'm going to read into the record the project description. This is at 1530 Shoreline Drive. This is a proposal for an extension of the existing balcony from 8 foot 6 inches to 17 feet 0 inches, and the replacement of an existing double sliders on the second floor balcony with 5-panel bifold doors. Also proposed are a new entry porch post, extended entry porch slab, a new window and French door at the front facade. This project is located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. Action may be taken if sufficient information is proposed. Project requires coastal review. Katie, before we start, I did visit this site over the weekend. This is a project that we had already approved, so this is some additional work. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, Mr. Chair. And also, when we were doing the preliminary plan check, we noticed that the project requires a ZIR, so we actually can only give comments today.
So we can only give comments because there's a zoning information report
That is needed.
item that needs to be done?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So do you want to wait till your person gets here?
No, I'll just do my best.
Okay. Basically, what I'll have you do is just walk us through what you want to do.
Okay, just in brief summary, we, have a permit that we're working, remodeling my house currently, and we wanted to do some changes to the front of the house. So that's what this permit mainly focuses on, is the front of the house, extending the deck. Currently, it's about 8.5 feet is the deck length. Hi.
You guys running early?
Yes, we ask all of our applicants to be here 15 to 20 minutes ahead of their item, because if we are in sequence, we want to get started. Just go ahead, continue.
So we want to extend the deck and make it more usable size for my family. I have 4 kids, and we want to be able to put like a table for 8 out there and some furniture and stuff. We also, part of this permit, we've changed the look from the earlier permit a little bit. We're using some board and batten. I saw a house by the late Mr. Zimmerman on Mesa Lane that they used board and batten on the bottom and then the hardy shingles on the top. And my wife and I fell in love with that. I have a picture of it if you'd like to see it. It's a recent, it was about prior to his passing. So that's part of this change here as well. The extended deck is going to give us like a double porch look. So we're going to be able to put, some chairs and have some usable space underneath the deck. Have a nice little porch, maybe a little swing or something, a little chair swing or something like that. So that's, part of our reasoning there. Other than that, I mean, we also have some different doors upstairs on the front. We're proposing these bifold doors, which are similar to many of the houses on Mesa Lane. So we want to make the bifold doors so they open up fully and give us a nice view and such. So that's really the main focus of this permit here that we're asking for.
Okay.
Did you cover privacy issues at all on this yet?
No, as in...
Yeah, I'm Jarrett Gorn from Vanguard Planning. I'm working with Jeff on this. And it is a large upper story deck, but it's in the front of the house. There'd be a lot different issues if this was in the back of the house looking into the rear yards of adjacent neighbors, but this is in a fairly public space, especially public space on Shoreline Drive in a front yard, and doesn't really peer into the neighbor's yard so much. And again, it is in the front yard, so it's not quite the same privacy situation you might have in the case of a deck this size in other cases. And Jeff's talked to both the neighbors about this project as well, and I think you received a letter from at least one of them.
Okay.
But the adjacent neighbors have been well aware of the project and looked at the plans and everything. So I know it's important to your board.
Just by the way, if anybody's interested, this is that house on Mesa Lane, so that's kind of the look we're going for, except the color we're proposing is a hardy shingle light. It's like a light gray.
Is that a color that was already previously approved?
The previous color was hardy cobblestone, is what it was
Okay.
called.
So do you have a
Did
a
you
sample
get the
board for the new
samples?
colors?
I didn't get a sample board for this, but I think we're just here for comments today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I do have this from the Hardy catalog. It's just a light gray. It's a new color for Hardy. And the same trim. The trim's going to be the same color as we had proposed before, the Arctic White, Hardy Arctic White trim. So no change to that. Again, it'll be very similar to this, but the light gray. This just shows the how far the deck would come out. I don't know if anybody's interested. I took a tape measure and showed you where our current deck is, and then we're coming out that far. There's already, in the front of the house, there's already a protrusion in front of the deck. There's some shingles there that already stick out 4.5 feet.
Yeah.
So we're really only going 4.5 feet beyond the current shingles that are, there's like a little awning there already.
see.
So we're going an extra 4.5 beyond the shingles.
And while you got it on this page, another change with this project is there's the removal of a bunch of pavement back here. Staff was counting this as part of the driveway, even though it's not really used for maneuvering, and we're pulling that out. It's already non-conforming to open yard area, but this will bring it far more into conformance. It doesn't quite make it, but it gets it a lot closer to the 1,250 that's standard.
Okay.
There's also some landscaping. We're cleaning up the yard. There's currently synthetic grass in the front that the prior owner put in, and we're going to try to utilize that, but we're going to spice it up and put some succulents and just clean up the whole property. When I bought it, it was in pretty bad shape.
So is that's this drawing here?
Yeah. Oh, here we do have the samples. So that's the hardy shingle material that we'll use for the same color on the board and batten. And then there's the Arctic White trim.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I think that was it.
All right. Before we go to questions from the board, Katie, did we get any written correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Okay. Seeing none, Chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
I managed to track down one of my neighbors. He wrote that he has no objections. The other neighbor, the owner's gone all the time.
Is that a document we can give to this
Yeah.
staff? Okay.
My other neighbor I think he lives pretty much almost all the time in either Arizona and Hawaii, so he's hard to pin down.
Okay. Who else has other questions?
All right, I have a question.
Yes.
Am I on? I think I'm on. Is there any kind of a deck in the rear of the house?
No, there's none
Or
in the rear.
have you thought about that, about building a deck in the back?
I haven't thought about it at all. It really, the front, we have a view.
Yeah, I
and-
know.
and-
I'm really familiar
Yeah,
with it.
and the way my bedrooms and the way there's not a good access to, it wouldn't make any sense for us. The front makes the most sense because we have our living room and the kitchen. Everything's upstairs. Mm-hmm. It's that's our main hangout area, and we want to be able to just go from living room to the deck and from kitchen to the deck out front.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Let's go to comments. Who has comments?
Mr. Chair, I know I'm struggling with it because traditionally we have a requirement that the size of the deck be 15 feet away from the property line. In this particular case, however, the style of the architecture and the fact that it's located in the front yard could possibly mitigate privacy issues. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay, I'm just doing the 15-foot measurement right now.
Here's
Just,
a couple houses down.
okay,
Oh, sorry.
excuse me. We'll get to you in a minute. Okay, the board's having its discussion right now.
I'm a rookie.
Okay, no problem. So 15 feet is here, guys, just so you know. That's 15 feet. So if you'd use the 15-foot roll, then the deck would only be 16 feet wide.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it would look weird in front of a.
Also, just to comment, the existing deck is already not in compliance with
Right.
that, and they're just extending that out further.
Exactly.
So,
Okay.
so in this particular case, I guess I'd be willing to be a little more lenient about that, especially since it's not in the backyard.
Other comments?
Is there any way that the deck could be designed to make it, to give the homeowner more privacy and to give the people on the street and the pedestrians, less of an intrusive view?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bernstein, I think, how far are we already set back from the street? We're over 20 feet from the street at the closest corner of this deck to the street. That's double the typical setback for a one-story building in a lot of zones in the city. And the deck just has the single mass of a deck. So I don't know that this really looms over the street necessarily.
Do we have the square footage of this deck?
Yeah, what are the dimensions?
It's
We
25,
have-
if I'm measuring correctly, it's 25 feet by 17 feet?
Yeah, that's pretty darn close.
Okay.
May I show this?
Yes.
This is my neighbor's
Yeah, we
three.
know that house.
You know that house. I mean, he's got like a 500 square foot deck. That's
425 square feet.
400.
I just ballparked. I didn't go up and
They're
measure.
really familiar with that one.
Okay.
And he's got like something on his roof as well. Here's another house on Shoreline. If it's really close to the street. I mean, there's tons of them. Well, I'm exaggerating. There's quite a few houses that have decks near the street. I mean, you're welcome to look at some of these.
Yeah, we know those houses.
This is what they're trying to avoid.
Right.
Yeah,
What I-
all of those are things that we'll address in a moment.
We
Go ahead.
have made a lot of mistakes, but I
Yeah.
do like the fact that the house at the end of Mesa Lane, and I've talked to a lot of architects about this too, with
Yeah.
the color is wrong and the materials don't fit the neighborhood. So I'm glad to see that you're using a different color tone and palette, because I haven't heard anybody say that that house is compatible.
Okay. Any other comments? My comments are, I have a problem with the size of the deck. Okay? All those samples you showed us are coming back to haunt the city. Okay? This is not Party City. And having the doors that you're proposing, it makes it a party deck. Okay? And you're right on the public right-of-way. You're private right on the street. So I'm having a real difficult time with that. And if your aim is to be able to sit out there and have dinner and have a nice table and 8 or 12 folks to eat at dinner, you don't need to be that big. That's why I was just doing the sketch a second ago, just so I could get the scale to work. That's an 8-foot long table by 36 inches or 42 inches, if you go out to that line. Okay? That seats 8. You can go this way, and you can seat 12. I know because I have a similar table in my yard. So I'm not going to be supportive of going out 17 feet. It's too
An
large.
additional 8.5. Yeah.
It's too large. 17 feet, it's too large. So I could maybe go with something about 12 feet. And I agree with my colleagues that if we required you to go to the 15-foot requirement, you'd end up with a relatively small deck, knowing what your objective is. But I don't believe you need a 17-foot wide deck. So I'm not going to be supportive of 17 feet. I will support something closer to 12 feet. And in general, I'm kind of okay with your other proposals in terms of the siding and the window types, et cetera. I think that'll be perfectly fine, but I'm not going to support a big party deck.
May I comment on that?
No, you're going to come back. I'll let you comment in a moment. So let's finish with comments from the board. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. All right, go ahead.
I drew up to scale the deck that we're proposing, and in addition, I'd like to be able to sit down and
Put it right here so we
It's got to be there.
And so I've got a table for 8. I have to have room for these bifold doors to swing open. I want to put my, barbecue out there, and I want to be able to sit down. So I've drawn that up, and I think it's a reasonable size. I'm not a party family. I have 4 kids.
We're not talking about
Yeah.
you specifically. We have to approve this house based on all future owners.
Yeah.
Okay, you may not own it forever and ever. So,
Right, I understand.
This reflects on the neighborhood. And the minute you start showing all those photographs of these decks where Ms. Bernstein indicated the board has made some mistakes in the past, some of these were done before. One of the reasons this board exists is because some of those decks. The community said, no, we're not going to have these big houses along Shoreline Drive. That's why this board is here. It was all precipitated with the houses on Shoreline Drive. So I can't be supportive. Maybe there's 4 other members here that maybe will be supportive, but I'm not going to be supportive of a 17-foot wide deck.
I just wanted to say a few other things. There's people that don't even have decks. They have single-story homes, and they have doors like right near the street. On the way up here, I drove by and I noticed there was a bunch of people sitting right outside their single-story home on Shoreline Drive, and they had towels and chairs, and they're just sitting in their yard, which is right near the sidewalk. And they could have a big party there if they wanted.
We see all that. We're very familiar with this. We've approved houses up and down this street, 2 right across the street just recently.
Yeah.
We're reviewing 2 more up the street. So we're very familiar with this.
Yeah.
So I'm just speaking on behalf of myself. I'm not going to be supportive. Okay?
I understand, and I'm just trying to point out that I'm further away than those people that are sitting in their yard.
Understand. But
And
I
I'm up
can't
elevated
I
and
can't
so
be
on.
supportive of an elevated deck that big.
When I looked to purchase this home, I did a lot of research. I went to the planning department counter, and I said, I'm thinking about buying this home. It's a big investment for me. I'm trying to move from Santa Maria to here. I said, I'd like to put a deck out front. What could I do that? And the people at the counter, and I talked to them on multiple times, they said, well, you're within your setback. I even discussed putting a garage out front and building a deck on top of the garage. And they all said, yeah, you're within your rights to be able to do that. We might tell you to put some plants and, things like that and spice it up or whatever. So I really got the impression that from those numerous discussions and doing due diligence with the planning department people at the counter that I'd be able to do something like this. And I'm not all the way to my setback even with my proposal.
Understand, but this board has discretionary review, and they probably
understand.
didn't share that with you. Anyway, any other comments from the board? Okay. According to Katie, because this has a ZIR report that is yet to be done, we can only make comments today. So we need to give some direction, some feeling which way the board will go on this item.
So I have a comment.
Yes.
So based on the comments you heard, you have to kind of mix it all together and kind of figure out what you want to do, because someone is quite strongly feeling that it's way too large. Other of us spoke that we felt it was fine. However, I would suggest that you reduce it a little bit.
In depth.
In depth.
Yeah.
Correct. I think the width we're okay with because that's the style of your house, and the fact that you're in the front yard is a big thing. Because the whole reason for that 15 foot is for privacy issues.
Right.
So you're not spying down into someone else's backyard. And I think the style of the architecture is conducive of the width you've got. But as far as the depth goes, the board is uncomfortable with it.
So how do we proceed on that?
It's up
At
to
this
you.
point,
Finish their comments.
at this point, what will happen is the board needs to make a motion with comments. Whatever that motion is, that'll be comments that you'll be paying attention to before you return again, because we can't take a final action today. So we're not going to give you any kind of approval, but we're going to give you comments, and it may be in the line Mr. Miller is outlining, but I'll wait to see if whoever makes a motion. So the chair would look for a motion. There's no further comments.
Okay. I move to continue the project 2 weeks.
To the full board or to
Indefinitely?
full-
We'll say indefinitely.
to the full board? Okay.
With the following comments. That the board finds the deck to be, we can overlook the 15-foot setback from property line on either side of the deck, but we would we request that the applicant shorten the deck, make it less than the 17 feet that is now proposed, to keep it a little bit more in proportion with the neighborhood and with the house itself, and to ensure privacy for others. Otherwise, we find the materials that have been presented and the colors to be appropriate to the neighborhood. And that's it.
Does the maker of the motion want to address the acceptability of the bifold doors and the bifold doors and the general facade treatment?
Yes, I think I mentioned the facade treatment with the hardy board and all that.
Okay.
Yes, that's acceptable and the colors are acceptable, and that also the bifold doors are.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second. And under discussion, does the maker of the motion and the board want to consider some requirements in terms of landscaping in order to soften the house and the newer, it's going to be a bigger deck from the street?
This is a preliminary landscape plan. It's part of the submission.
Could you look at that?
You see what I'm saying? Yeah, this one's in color, but
They're adding bamboo.
Page L1.
There's not really much. Yeah, there's really not much other than some bamboo that's being proposed.
We'll study the landscaping on that side.
Yeah, I would like to add that to my motion to present at the next meeting that the applicant. I can't speak tonight. Excuse me. That at our next meeting with this applicant, that they also bring a landscape plan that has call-outs for size and quantity of plants in the front yard that would soften this new deck, especially in the side yards on either side.
does the maker of the motion need to make any comments about the use of bamboo?
But do we know what type of bamboo that is?
This is a very preliminary plan, and we don't know what type of bamboo that is. I can't tell you, but I think maybe we'll look for something other than bamboo.
Why don't you look for something other than
The neighbor has some bamboo on his side.
So that's your motion?
Yes.
That's an addition?
That's an addition.
Okay. Is that acceptable to the seconder? Who made the second?
Yes, it's acceptable. However, I'd like to also talk about with the new design, the smaller version that you're going to bring back. Could you bring back the materials and what it's going to look like, and so we get a visual?
The materials for what exactly?
Yeah.
Well, for the
Bernie, I don't think that needs to be part of the motion. When they come back, if they've done what they need to do with the staff on the zoning, and they're going to try to get approval, and they need to come back. Normally, they have a list of things they have to bring, and then one of those is a material list, so they'll bring all of that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. There is a second on the floor. Is there further discussion to the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back here when you work with staff on your zoning. Okay? All right, let's go to item number 3, 265 Conejo Road.
We're 15 minutes early.
Oh, can we go? Kathleen, do we have to wait? Oh, we're 15 minutes ahead.
No, we can go.
Can we go? Okay. While the applicant's coming forward, is the applicant here for 4 or 265 Caneo Road? Okay. While they're coming forward, I'm going to read into the record because this is a new project. This is a revised project, proposal to construct a 2,105 square foot, one-story, single-family residence and an attached 382 square foot, two-car carport. The prior residence was destroyed in the T-fire. 2 prior projects, MST 2009-00183 and MST 2013-00351 were previously approved. Proposal includes a 156 square foot detached accessory building, an 857 square foot exterior deck, a new spa, and the removal of one 30-inch diameter oak tree. The proposal total of 2,643 square feet on a 102,366 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 45% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Proposal received includes staff hearing officer approval for a requested zoning modification on MST 2013-00351. Any action can be taken if sufficient information is provided. Project must comply with Tier 3 stormwater management plan requirements and staff hearing officer resolution number 066-13. If you could introduce yourself, please.
I'm Chris Kirkley, and I'm the agent for the applicant.
You're welcome. If you could share with us what you're proposing.
Okay, so this has been in front of a couple of you guys before. Let me see here. So it's a single family, single story, and I believe you've seen this project before, actually. I know a couple of you haven't, though. Just go to the elevations here. So this project had previous comments where the color of the house and also the detailing on the recess of the fenestrations were a concern. And the deck also, the roof deck was asked to be looked at again, although it had been passed on a previous board motion. So we re-reviewed the deck, and because of the slope and also the location of the internal downspouts, it would create ponding. So we've decided to leave the deck the way it is on the roof, the way it had been previously approved. That's up in this area here. The fenestrations, one of the questions or the comments was made before was that they were all kind of looking the same, the treatments. And so what we've done is we've changed the variation of the treatments, and we've also recessed the fenestrations back into the building more to give more of a shadow line. Another comment on the board previously was the fact that the front elevation was all white stucco. And so we've also introduced the stone that was previously just on the back to the front. And then also have brought in more of a textured, cat-faced texture and more of a rougher texture to the stucco so that it would create more of a shadow inside the stucco itself and also create more of a muted look to it. So those are pretty much the last comments that we were asked to address on this project.
Okay. Anything else?
No, we're updating the stormwater plan right now from the previous Tier 2 to the Tier 3. So I don't have that with me today. And I'm also updating the footprint on the landscaping plan, so I also do not have that with me today. Okay. But I do have colors if you'd like to see those as well. Okay. Also, I did bring some photos in. There was some comments at how that there weren't other houses on Conejo that had received the white stucco. And so I brought that in to show that there are actually other houses on Conejo Drive that are actually the white stucco. This is our site. This is one below. This is our neighbor. There's another one down here and a couple more in the neighborhood. And then the other one that I wanted to show was closer to our design. This is on Camino Alto, and there should be one in relation to this one here. So this is I'm going to put it back towards you, same relationship. This is our site here, and this is the neighbor right beside us, how it's tucked in.
Okay, those are the same photographs?
These are the same photographs, so you can see them here.
Because the camera is reading it
Okay.
backwards.
So this is our site and our site. This is our neighbor and our neighbor. And then this is similar to the design that we're looking at. And this is it here up on Camino Alto, which is much higher elevation than us. And what I'd like to show is that the way our site is similar to this site here, our neighbor, and we're actually recessed with us down on a slope. Our house would be kind of hidden by the topography itself, and then also a great deal of vegetation around here. So I just wanted to point out that based on one of the last comments was that other white stucco houses hadn't been really passed at a higher elevation or approved. There are similar houses that we're proposing that have been. And then also I wanted to show that our neighbor, ourselves, depending on what direction you're looking at, you really don't see a great deal of that white. There's also one other photo. This is the north side right here of the neighbor and our site again. And you can also notice that a lot of the times the northern elevation is in dark shadow, so you're not going to see a lot of the bright white coming from this side. So it would be sheltered from that side. You wouldn't see a lot from this side. On our site, it will be sheltered from this side. You'd only really see the white from this direction coming up Conejo.
Okay, anything else?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. Katie, I have a question. This is coming to us as a new item, and yet, I'm quizzing myself. What's going on?
Yes, I'd like to clarify. The project was revised sufficiently enough so we felt it warranted a new hearing, so you could clearly understand that even though it came back in January as a review after final, really had different architect, different architectural style, and the footprint had been adjusted. That triggers additional requirements like a swim, so we felt it was appropriate to put it back on the agenda as a revised new project, and that's what the applicant paid for.
Okay, so today it says any action can be taken. Obviously, she's already indicated she doesn't have her swim completely done, et cetera. But the board could take a action for project design approval?
That's correct. The staff has determined it's in substantial conformance with the original modification approvals.
Okay.
It was a T-Fire project rebuild, and the footprint was slightly expanded and adjusted.
Okay. All right. So anything else from staff you know about? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address this project? Katie, did we receive any communication?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. As Mr. Lamone pointed out to us, we can, in fact, take any action we think is necessary if sufficient information is provided. The applicant has indicated that stormwater management Tier 3 has not been completed, so it would probably prevent us from giving it final approval, but we certainly might want to consider project design approval, but I'll leave that up to the board. So questions?
Yeah, Mr. Board,
Yes.
Chair, I have a question. I apologize. You said this came before us before?
It's actually been at conceptual once, full board twice. This is the third time here.
Okay.
Are you proposing a swimming pool?
It's a wading pool. It's on the site plan. It's
Wading pool?
yeah. It's right off the deck here. It's about a 12 by 18, I want to say. Here we go. There's a better site. 12 by 18. And the sections, well, actually on the elevations, it will show the depth. It's no deeper than 4'6".
Okay. Other questions?
I have a question about I guess it's the exterior tile or brick. I'm not sure what it is,
So do you
but
want to
there's
need
a
an
lot
elevation?
of it.
The stone.
Did you
It's
have a
stone.
sample? Oh, they're stone.
It's stone.
I didn't bring the full sample today, but this is the coloring. So that's the roof. That's the stone
This
veneer.
is the roof.
Yeah, and this is the windows. The color.
It has a flat roof, and that's the stone. That's this
Yeah,
material.
and there. So it's a parapet. The parapet roofs. And then this is the stucco, and then I just wanted to show the texture, that we would be putting a heavy texture on it and creating a lot of movement in it so that there would be a lot of interest in shadowing.
I'm just wondering why are you so adamant about the Arctic light? Because it is controversial, because of it's so bright. I just wondered why you were making that argument.
It's actually being driven by the client himself. The house is very much designed after a house that he lived in for a long time in Mykonos.
That's exactly
And
right.
he's 87 years old, and he's very much sentimentally tied to this design and this look right now. And so I told him I would come back to the board and try once again. And that was one of the reasons why we
that's a classic
took
look for that
off
style.
this the larger wall and put that into stone and made that more of a look that it was
Into this stone with this stucco.
down on the bottom. I have other pictures if you'd like to see what he was looking at. But
Sure.
Okay, well, while she's grabbing those, any other questions? Anybody else has questions? Okay.
Well, we should talk about the deck a little bit, because we talked about that a lot last time.
Right.
so this is really his
That's what he's.
Oh, okay.
his feel of the house. It would.
Can you put them on the camera so we can
Yeah,
all
we need
see?
right there. Okay.
Does that make sense? So it's very much sentimental. It's reminiscence of Mykonos, where he lived for quite a bit of time, and he's not able to get back there.
Okay. Other questions? If not, let's go to comments. I'm sure the applicant would like to receive project design approval if possible.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think
Yes.
I remember this house now when you said it, because it reminds me of a house of the Greek Isles, and when you said Mykonos, I thought, oh yeah. So, and I think we actually complimented you the last time you were here. I really can support this house. I think it's got a very strong historical nature to it. I think it'll be kind of a neat asset in the neighborhood, based on the way it's going to be kind of hidden in the trees and the topography of the land. So I think I can support the project.
Other comments?
Is there a landscape plan to go along with this?
We're reusing the previous landscape plan from the past project, and I don't think that
It's
set
not
of plans
part.
came in. It has been actually approved already.
Oh, it has.
So we're going to reuse that one. But we are coordinating
I think I
that
did
with
that, but
the Tier 3 stormwater.
Mr. Miller reminded me. Is there any public comment? Anyone wishing to address this project? Katie, I take we didn't receive any written comment? Okay. Just to make sure, I'll close public comment. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay. This is September 2013. Okay. So that's essentially what we reviewed last time.
So what we're doing here is we're just updating the footprint, and we had cut the back of the deck. This decking got cut back. The footprint got taken away from this, infringing upon this oak, and then we've put the pool in here. So that's what's changed on this plan.
And I think previously we did discuss the oak that's going to be taken out.
If it can't survive, we've got authorization to take it out. If it can come back, then the owner would be happy to keep it.
Okay, other comments?
Well, I think Bernie's right. This is an 857 square foot exterior deck. That's pretty huge. And it is in a different position than the last project that we saw. This does not have immediate neighbors. However, there has been some talk on this board about the echoing down the valley when there's a party deck up above. But I just wondered how everybody else felt about that.
My recollection from our last set of conversations that we did discuss the size of the deck considerably, and I think our general consensus was that in this particular location and application it was acceptable. And I'd have to go back and review the video.
It was approved as a majority. It was approved. The comment was just to retake a look at it and see if there was a way that we could change the drainage to make the square footage smaller. And when I took a look at the way the roofing material is applied, it would actually introduce ponding and then create more of an issue for waterproofing. So that's the reason for not making it smaller.
Other comments?
I don't remember, but I remember. I mean, I think we thought that the deck needed to get smaller.
Well, and that's what
But
she just responded. She just responded to that.
Right,
saying
but it
couldn't
didn't
make
get smaller.
Couldn't make it smaller. Anyone else want to weigh in? Yeah, I think that I'll weigh in at this point. This is a much better approach to the architecture by taking that stone all the way around. I think in the context of where this project's going to sit, that's going to work much better, and the whiteness of the house will have less impact. You know, part of our challenge is that some of the T-fire replacement houses got approved without review of the full board. So this issue of white just got, and then there's some homes that did not burn in the fire and they were white already. So that's part of the challenge when you're trying to corral something that's already out of the genie is already out of the bottle. So, but I think by doing this gesture, that will reduce, in my view, the impact of the whiteness, and yet still kind of adhere to what your client is speaking to. The minute I saw that balcony, and I've seen it before, it brings to mind one of John Singer Sargent's most famous paintings that was in I think it's owned by the Boston Museum, where there's two women sitting on a balcony, looks exactly like this, and it's white, and it's got the Mediterranean sunset in the background, and it's just gorgeous. So if you can achieve that with this house, you'll have accomplished something. One of my questions, and I didn't ask it, you had what was that photograph? Are you going to put a color in this? You had something that had blue on it. Or is that going to just be white?
It's actually the door. The door itself.
It's going to be blue.
It's going to be the sapphire and blue.
Okay. So it's just the door.
But it will be a solid door. It's not going to have glass in it.
Okay, so this is also, okay.
Yeah, and this is just all built up in creating shadow lines.
Okay. So I would be supportive at this point of giving this project design approval. I think sufficient changes have been made to satisfy me that it kind of meets the criteria of dealing with the neighborhood and the acreage around it and the trees and the foliage. And I was up again there on Saturday. There was a fellow cleaning off the whole site from apparently the fire department has gone out there and said it's got to get cleaned up. So they were cleaning it up on Saturday when I was up there. So obviously as an architect I probably would have done some things differently, but I think this is going to be fine, and I think this move here was sufficient. I'm just hoping that as you move forward there's sufficient money to do it, because we run into a lot of times we'll get review after final because somebody's walked in and realized how much stone veneer cost.
We've already had that discussion
Okay,
to make
good.
sure that this is doable. So.
All right. Okay, those are my comments. So anyone else with comments? Okay, then the chair will look for some sort of motion.
Come on, guys.
Okay. You could give this, if you choose to, you could give this project design approval with comments.
Okay.
You could give it project design approval without comments. You could give it comments only. And whatever motion you make, I would encourage you to make sure you're clear on whether it comes back to the full board or the consent calendar.
Okay. I would like to give this project design approval. Following comments. That the board accepts the revisions that you've made for the last iteration, the new stone placement, and we are okay with the large size deck, and let's see, what else? And the detached accessory building, did we discuss that?
It was previously discussed.
Okay.
But you probably need to put it into your motion.
Okay, and that we previously approved the 156 square foot detached accessory building. And that, did you show us in your tier 3?
She's not there yet.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
We were just informed about a week ago that we had to upgrade from a tier 2 to tier 3, so we're just working on that now.
When you return to the consent calendar, that you bring your tier 3 and your fleshed out landscaping plan.
Okay.
That's your motion?
That is my motion.
You'll need to make the MPO findings.
Oh, and the board finds that this project complies with the neighborhood preservation findings, has consistency in appearance, compatibility with the neighborhood, uses quality architecture and materials, and follows our good neighbor guidelines.
Okay. That's your motion?
That is my motion.
Okay. Before we go to a second, I'm going to ask the maker of the motion, and as I understand your motion, this is going to go now to this project design approval, so it's going to go to consent calendar for final. Is that your motion?
Well, it should come back to us for final, right? Yeah.
Well, it's either, you said consent, so that's why I'm asking you.
How about you come back to the full board for
Full board for final, okay.
final.
So who's ever taken, Kathleen, whoever's taking notes, make sure the motion reads full board. But I would request the maker of the motion elaborate a little further on the reasoning for accepting the size of the roof deck. Your motion said we accepted the size of the roof deck, we're okay with it, but I think it should go into the record.
Based on the fact that it is not causing any privacy issues.
It's a very large parcel, so.
Compatible with the surrounding landscaping.
And the fact that this project is only 45% of FAR, that the lot can accommodate the size of deck proportionally, it doesn't outweigh the project size.
Okay. All right. So is that clear? All right. So that's the motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
I have a comment. Do we need it for the full board, or can we take it to consent?
Well, here's the procedure. We have a motion on the floor. We either need to second it.
I second it.
Okay. If you're going to second it, now we can go to comment. Okay.
Do we want to go to the full board, or do we want to revisit it and go to consent? How does the board feel?
It's up to the maker of the
Well,
motion.
wait, can we have a little discussion? Because
Sure.
I'm still not really convinced about accepting the deck size, mainly because it's going to set a precedent, but I don't know how many other new projects we're going to be seeing. But if there are a lot of vacant lots still coming forward, then this is going to set a precedent.
That's a valid concern. However, I guess my feeling is that the style of architecture is conducive to this kind of a roof deck, so it's appropriate for this style of architecture. And the fact that it's in such a large parcel and it's a 45% FAR, I'm comfortable with it. I think if she tries to not make it a roof deck, it kind of kills the charm of the house.
I agree, and also that the fact that there are no immediate neighbors that are going to be affected by this.
if you look at, Bernie, the general parcel is that big. Look at where the other houses are. You have to look at it in the context of the neighborhood. It's very different than the one we just looked at over on Shoreline Drive, where
It's
all the
not
houses are all
exposed.
packed together.
It is not exposed at all. It's very,
When we look at these
Rounded.
things, we really have to look at them in the context of the neighborhood, and that's why I really urge you as board members to go out and see these sites. You have to drive out there and walk around. I got out and walked around. I looked down through all of the what could I see? I walked up to that house. I walked up to that house. I walked down to here. You've really got to look at these things. We're making judgments based on people's desires, and you've got to be able to. One of our jobs here on this board is to make sure that we're looking at compatibility with the neighborhood. That's why the staff have us read that language that's in that yellow document. So I'm really going.
In your opinion, this is compatible.
This is compatible, but what I'm saying here is I'm really going to start asking you folks, if you want to be on this board, you need to go out and look at these sites.
Not everybody can do that.
Well, then maybe you don't need to be on the board, okay?
Well, a lot of us can read plans.
A lot of folks are in front of us spending a lot of money to do homes, and we have to give them our opinion based on the city's council's requirement that we look at the compatibility of how these homes sit within neighborhoods. And if you're not going out and looking at these sites, then in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, then you're not doing your job.
Well,
Okay?
you can also see things. A lot of us have lived here for a long time and know the neighborhoods well. So,
I've lived here for 40 years, and I still don't know the whole city.
well, having been out there, I agree that
Okay.
this
Thank you.
site is appropriate for this plan.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. That's acceptable to the seconder?
And I wanted to revisit whether we want to go to consent or full board.
Okay, and
How do you feel about it?
Have we gone through, it has all the details necessary?
Seen?
Okay, so we'll stay at full board.
I have details, but we didn't get them today.
Well, I just don't want to waste time if we don't need to come back to the full board.
It depends on how much
Well,
more details.
And you architecture people can tell
the
me,
architectural details.
do we have the level of detail to say come back to consent?
So I'm comfortable with what we got now based on what the designer said and what the client wants and the designs that have already been presented. So architecturally speaking, aesthetically speaking, I'm satisfied with this level of design that it could go to consent. But that's just my feeling on the matter.
Could you show us your color board again? You put it away. So.
is that the same one already filed, or is this a new one?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
Did we have one already previously filed, or is this a new one?
No, I brought it last time. I just didn't
Okay.
I haven't given you guys a hard copy of it yet, a photograph of it yet.
Wouldn't we have to see the light fixtures and
The light fixtures on the other elevation, I believe. This one, these sheets here. Maybe it's on this one. Like that. That's the exterior light fixture. Yeah, they're all downlighting, shrouded.
Okay. Right, so did we settle consent, or,
I'll say consent.
okay, so is that acceptable to the seconder?
Back and
Yes, it
forth,
is.
back and forth.
So the motion would read going to the consent for final, okay? That's the motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further
Oh, wait,
discussion?
I had one more question.
Yes.
Maybe we've already talked about this. Did we review the landscape plan?
it's already been.
It's already
We'll
done.
look at it on,
Yeah, it's been approved, but
Okay.
if I'm just going to make sure it's coordinated correctly with the stormwater, the tier 3, and I'll bring out.
You
point
can
out
show
any
us that in
revisions.
consent.
Yeah, I'll point out any revisions if there have been made any.
Okay, and we just looked at it a few seconds ago.
Right. Right now, it's exactly the same. It hasn't changed other than the footprint.
great.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, so we'll see you at consent. Okay, let's go to 242 Los Alturas Road. For 50. Oh, we may not.
Oh, my goodness.
We're way ahead. Ooh. so we need to take a break, but you go ahead and come on up. Let's recess for 10 minutes, and we'll come back in 10 minutes.
Você já foi à Bahia? Have one.
All right, Chair, bring back to order the Monday, August 22nd, 2016 Single Family Design Board. We're at item number 4. Before we start, I'm going to publicly apologize to my board members for my flare-up of a little bit of a temper a few moments ago.
We would appreciate that.
I'm sorry about that. I just sometimes get very frustrated, and that's my personal problem.
Well, so are
apologize
we.
to my board members.
Right, Denise? We're
Okay.
very committed to what we do here.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's go to the item. This is a new item, so I need to read into the record the project description. This is a proposal to remodel a 1,618 square foot of the existing 3,797 square foot one-story house, demolish 16 square feet of the existing house, and add 518 square feet to the residence. Also proposed is a re-roof, a new 420 square foot attached two-car garage to replace the existing non-conforming carport, which would encroach into the front setback, and a new pool deck with landscaping. The proposed total of 4,719 square feet on a 34,290 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 98% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer review is a request to allow the new garage in the required front setback. This is here for comments only. Project requires staff hearing officer review. Welcome. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Damian Forte with Studio William Hefner, architect for the client.
I'm Janice McGlashan, one of the owners of the property.
Bob McGlashan, the other half.
Bob Irvine with Studio William Hefner.
Okay, welcome. If you could share with us what you're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Just as a minor note, as far as that front setback issue, this is a secondary front setback lot where the actual entrance is not on a street but off a private drive. So the house is currently non-historic. It has quite a few difficulties going on it, namely with the roof. It's quite falling apart. There's a lot of damage to it. Owners took over ownership this spring, and we are proposing first to get that roof replaced. The second portion of the project, the main portion of the project, has come. I'll go to the site plan. Is to remodel the westerly portion of the residence, namely taking the bedrooms, the bedroom wing off and rebuilding that. The existing non-conforming carport is here. That was a 77 addition. The existing carport was right here. I'll get to the importance of, I'm sorry, the previous carport, the original was right here, and I'll get to the importance of that in a little bit. We are proposing a 592 square foot addition on the northern edge of the property, which is essentially the front of the house off Private Drive, adding a section to the master wing on the westerly side and removing about 19 square foot gross from the southern side. We have a very tight setback on the south side. We have encroachment that was existing from previous and is grandfathered in. The existing carport as it is now is only 15 feet deep. It's not adequate for actual parking. We're proposing an enclosed two-car garage, that this carport becomes a unenclosed deck area for the pool. And because this area just to the west of the existing carport, which was the original carport, was enclosed in the 70s and the floor level was not increased, the pool, you actually step up one step into the pool and it's quite a tripping hazard. So we're proposing raising that deck by 6 inches to match the pool, which includes the interior floor. Included in the set is existing and proposed. If you'd like, I can walk you through the plans. I'm sure you're more interested in the elevations. Is that correct?
If you could share with us, so this is this half, the garage is to that side. correct?
Match line right here. That's correct. Next page would be that rest of the house.
You're adding square footage, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so where is that?
The square footage is essentially this line. This is an existing wall line. So take this all the way over. Everything north of that is going to be new.
Okay, so that's added square footage.
That's added square footage.
And you're taking off this little corner.
There's a corner going to be taken off here, and then this from here over is new square footage.
This piece.
Yeah, master bedroom, new master bedroom.
Right, thank you.
Currently, the master bedroom is this chunk here. Here's our match for proposed. We're proposing to take that existing carport and use it as an unenclosed pool cabana or deck area, and then put this two-car garage enclosed on the north side. Now, that's where the setback issue is. I know that's not up for discussion really today, but I wanted to get you informed. These couple plans show existing and demolished. So substantially, the entire western half of the building will be demolished and rebuilt. The current roof is a mix between built up and a gravel over hot treatment. We're proposing a new standing seam metal roof and built up for flat areas. The existing profile for that roof is only 4 inches thick, so it's basically 2x4 joists. They're sagging all over the place, and it's quite a hot mess. Existing roof heights will remain the same. The major roof ridge that is on the public portion of the existing structure will be identical, although it's coming up. The thickness of the increased joists we're estimating at a 2x10, so it'll essentially come up 6 inches in overall height. The master bedroom will be coming up because we're proposing a shed roof in that area instead of a gabled roof. It will be coming up about 2.5 feet, 2 feet 4 inches from its existing ridge. And that can be seen on sheet A 2.01 with elevation 1. So we're having a ridge all the way to the west over the master, replacing all of the roof that is existing and can stay, and then doing a flat roof at 10-foot high plates for the remaining of the portions that are addition. Material-wise, the project is kind of gone through a number of styles and additions over time. We're proposing to unify those to eliminate the wide variance of materials, to go to stucco on the exterior to maintain most of the windows on the first floor level, especially in the clear story level of the main portion of the building, and then have some minor changes to materials to eaves. And that's about the crux of what we got now.
Anything else that you need to show us?
I don't believe so.
All right. Before we go to questions from the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, is there any communication that we received from anyone?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. The chair will then close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Do you ask questions?
Yeah, I have Mr. Chair, your administration, can you please explain how what's going on here?
Which sheet do you want to look at?
Both A201 and A202, in particular on here. Oh, it's existing. Yeah. What is that? What is this work? Yeah, I just. That's just all glass. That's just one solid piece of glass.
It's not. It's not one solid piece of glass. Actually, springing up from the dividers that you see.
We need to kind of talk to this one because it's on
Got it. Sorry.
camera. Sorry.
So springing up from the dividers that are existing, there actually should be. We're just missing those at the time of this submittal. So.
Okay.
No, but they are large plate.
So correct. This goes up like
Correct.
that.
Yeah, Fred, if you look below on sheet A202, it's really kind of interesting. Not quite clear with that. Yeah, the bot. Yeah, well, look at that one.
So this is on the master bedroom?
Correct.
This is the new piece, more or less, here, right?
That's correct.
And so are these going up like that?
That's correct.
And my experience is it's very difficult to get sheets of glass that are more than 8 foot in length. So is there any horizontals on these?
That's correct. At existing ridge. So top of ridge, 14.33.
Right there?
Correct.
Right. Okay, other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Are these windows?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a few. I was up at the site over the weekend. I want to go back to the site plan. So the property goes all the way down to this portion of Los Alturas, correct?
Correct.
And this piece, is there another piece of property that's going over that way?
There is the existing survey that we received did not include that, but there it is. It goes out to right
Does
here.
it come to a V or?
It does not come to a V. It comes to a rectangular turn.
So this is not complete.
Correct.
Okay. And then the other thing I noticed is there appears to be, and I couldn't tell because I couldn't see where fence lines were, but there appears to be some erosion issues down along here. And I don't know if it's on both properties or just this property. So Katie, do they have to do a stormwater?
2 or 3.
2 or
Yes,
3?
Mr. Chair.
And have you even discussed what's going on down here?
We're in process, but can't really advise yet whether or not we're altering or revising for retaining.
So that's something we might see in the future.
That's correct.
So you don't know if you have to do retaining walls or you have to regrade it or whatever you have to do.
That's correct. We wanted to just get through conceptual before we invested.
Let's see. There is a very hefty hedge out here that doesn't show on this drawing, but there's a hedge currently all the way down to about right there, I guess, or somewhere right in here. Well, there's a lawn out here. If I walked and poked my head around here, there's a hedge this size. So are you proposing to retain that hedge or?
Retain or revise. The overall visibility will not change.
Okay, so at some point there'll be a landscape plan that'll come back?
Next review, after conceptual review, correct.
Okay. And you didn't happen to do an analysis of what the FAR is without these additions?
It's 78%.
78. So it's currently 78%. And the way I read this document, it's now at 98%, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Including the carport, or including the garage. Yes.
Okay, and that includes the garage. Does it include the pool cabana area in that?
It does.
Okay, so that includes that. And then over on sheet this one. Do you know what the pitch of that is, more or less?
3 and 12.
So that's a 3 and 12? Okay. Let's go for my questions. Anyone else have questions? Oops.
No.
Okay. So again, this is here only for comments. We'll go to the staff hearing officer. One of the things that will happen, typically, we will review this, and you're going to be seeking hopefully positive comments about the element that has to be within the setback that you're asking the modification for. And the reason you kind of want to do that is when you hit the staff hearing officer, they're going to want to know what our thoughts are with regards to the aesthetics and the placement of that element within the setback. So I would assume that members will be making comments with regards to, I believe it's the garage, that's the modification request.
That's correct. And to this point, we've received quite positive feedback for the feasibility of the modification from
staff.
From staff.
Okay. But staff is going to be looking to this board to determine whether we're in agreement, et cetera. So you'll want to be looking at that. So any further questions? If not, then let's go to comments. Who has comments?
My comment is I find the elevations to be very technically well drawn, but they're not aesthetically well drawn, and I feel a little uncomfortable looking at them. I'd like to see a more aesthetic, I don't know if that makes sense, a betterly represented rendering of the elevations based on the fact that the fenestrations aren't really accurately drawn. So it's hard for me to kind of base a strong comment. And the other comment I have is, and I look forward to the board's other comments, is this roof style here, if that's in keeping with the style of the house, if that's an appropriate, or does that look kind of strange there? So,
Mr. Chair, am I able to address?
You need to make notes. We're going to have the board will have its conversation.
More than welcome to.
Unless they have direct questions to you, make notes of comments you want to make. We'll come back to you when we finish our comments. Okay.
Those are my only comments.
Okay. Other comments?
I have a few comments. I guess I'm just going to ask the board to see if we are able to make the findings for quality architecture and the materials, in this neighborhood with the metal roof. There's a whole lot of glass already that exists, and it looks like there's a lot more coming, so I was just wondering if we might be able to make some suggestions about how to enhance the quality of the architecture.
Other comments? Okay, well, Bernie, I'll follow up on your comment about the standing seam roof. The board, as of late, has been very reluctant to approve standing seam roofs on the Riviera. And that's mainly because they can be seen from all over the city. Look out the window here when we don't have a fire, you can see the Riviera. But I went up there on Saturday, and then I came down and went down to Coda Street and a few others where you can look up to the Riviera. And this house is, because it's right at the top, it's right at the ridge, has less of an impact than if it were lower on the Riviera where we had to deal with, and the roof would be steeper, and these roofs are not steep. So I'm a little less concerned in this particular case about the standing seam roof. I think you'll get down to the color, and the color proposed. But getting to Brian's point on the architecture, one of the things that we saw in this area of the Riviera during the 1960s and 70s, we had a lot of architecture that wanted to devote itself to following some of Cliff May's design prowess in terms of low-slung, single-story homes. We had just a little further up Conejo Road, up on the ridges. We've had to deal with a couple, as you recall, a couple of houses that were kind of in the same
genre.
Vein, the same genre. And I don't know that, part of the challenge we have here is try not to, at least I try not to try to put a tag on these houses, but it does want to be contemporary. And Cliff May is probably the closest we can look at historically to how those homes were treated. So kind of using that as a guidepost to some degree, I'm really having a problem with this shape right here. I think that's why I asked you what the roof pitch is. Mm-hmm. It's not there yet. It's not compatible with this piece of architecture that you're trying to hold on to and all this expansive glass. And with regards to Brian's comment about our ability to make a judgment on this architecture, it really gets down to you're trying to sell us something. And if you look around, we're sitting looking at these wonderful drawings that have been on these walls for several years now. That's what we're used to looking at, something that's delineated that we can read. These may technically be okay, but they're very difficult for a lot of folks to understand. So it probably would help your case here if you really rendered these in a much more architectural fashion. But setting that aside, there is a lot of glass. It will be a nighttime issue, but it's already there, and it's kind of already doing that to some degree. And because it's way on the top of the hill, I'm less concerned than I would be if this were elsewhere on the Riviera. The thing that's really bothering me at this point is the 98% FAR. If you look at the other homes along this little private driveway, one directly across and then one at the end of this little cul-de-sac, I'm kind of scratching my head. Are we complacent in allowing another, like these two huge homes here, that in my opinion had a board existed when these were approved, probably wouldn't have got approved. So I'm kind of struggling with the FAR amount. And I know in the past we've talked about doing FARs that are larger than our 85% guideline, usually on very large lots. This is kind of close to that, but not close, so I'm not comfortable yet with the 98%. I'm also not fairly comfortable with sticking the garage out into that setback, given the tightness of that little lane and where the other homes are all sitting. That's why I was asking about that hedge, because the hedge really diminishes to some degree the attractiveness of what this house could be by hiding it behind the hedge. But we see that all over Montecito, but this isn't Montecito. So I'm a little concerned about how landscaping moves ahead. Landscaping, in my view, landscaping and the architecture are one and the same. The complete package is the assembly of the landscaping and the architecture that creates what the streetscape looks like and what the context of the complete picture looks like. So without seeing landscaping with the relationship to the architecture, it's still a lot difficult to understand that. So I would encourage you when you visit this again at least to have some kind of preliminary landscaping plan with some idea of how you're going to treat landscaping, and particularly in context to what it looks like from that little lane, and whether or not you're going to retain that current hedge, not, and also what it looks like from this side as you look towards the city. So I'm not comfortable yet that the garage is in the right place from a sighting standpoint, and aesthetically I'm not too certain that it's where it needs to be at this point. I think the language, the architectural language that you're introducing to the house, Bernie is going to say, Fred, what? But, the garage doors that you've drawn on these drawings.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, the garage doors and they don't, the way they're drawn, they don't really, in my mind, work with the vocabulary of the language of the architecture that you're trying to hold on to on this house. And the same thing goes with these little horizontal windows. I kind of understand what you're trying to do in terms of getting a horizontal element. And that can all make sense, but maybe that's not the right solution. So I think you got a little ways to go on that. So those are my major concerns at this point. I think it needs some more work before it gets to a point where I could see moving it forward. But I certainly am not feeling comfortable about the garage location, and look to my fellow board members to weigh in on that, because obviously they want to be able to go to a staff hearing officer.
I'd like to weigh in. In this neighborhood, I don't have a problem with this FAR for this neighborhood. I think there are a lot of houses that are this size up there. It's one of the areas. It's one of the areas here in Santa Barbara that where most of these houses are big, and it's a luxurious neighborhood, let's put it that way. So, and I think we have several spots like that in town where it does actually warrant us looking a little bit differently at the FAR. I don't know where else you'd put the garage, quite frankly. As I look at this plan, you'd be hard-pressed to find another spot. I would think you've probably looked at that pretty hard already, haven't you? I don't see where else you could put it, but that's my opinion. Other than that, because it is at the top of the Riviera, I don't have a problem with the standing seam metal roof because it is up at the top. No one's going to be necessarily looking down on you about that, so I don't think anyone's going to see it. Those are my comments.
Other comments? Lisa?
Yeah. Mr. Chair. I feel that the FAR might be able to be finagled down a little bit. Yes, the neighborhood contains lots of different sized houses, but it just seems that the rambling nature of this could be reduced to accommodate a smaller FAR. That is my comment. Thank you.
Other comments? Just to get back to the location of the garage, one solution is, since you're doing so much reconstruction here, is moving the garage back a little bit into here. Of course, the doors then would have to face out, and then pushing your cool cabana out a little bit that way. That might be a way to explore it, but without sitting down and actually spending some time, it's hard to tell whether you could make that work. Other comments?
I'd like to hear what
Mr.
the
Miller.
architect has to say.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so first, a question. Although you brought it up as an issue and somewhat answered it for yourself, is there a color range that you'd prefer for standing seam? We were assuming a darker color for that instead of lighter.
Yeah. That's probably going to be...
We think that's the best solution to eliminate some...
We'll wait to see what you bring.
Very good. Okay. The first thing I'd like to bring up is the shed roof compatibility. We actually looked at that quite a bit. We think, based on, you brought up Cliff May, and I think rightly, that the move that Cliff May would have made if he was making a similar move as we are in this scenario is that he would have reoriented this portion of the house back to this garden. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. Now, this is 6 feet above the main level of the house. There's some beautiful trees up here that we're trying to capture, and we think that shed roof allows that viewability of those oaks in that garden from the master wing to happen. Now, yeah, that roof is something a little bit different. That going from A to B to A to B to A is what we think would have been done. Now, whether that's a shed roof or some other means is a different question. The best answer to that would be the shed roof to allow the visibility of those trees and to bring the larger portions of the site that are currently underutilized back into the site. So that's the reason that we came up with the shed roof and why we think that it's, although a unique solution to it. It's a design solution that meets both need and the design is a kind of stylistic contiguousness with what would have been. Okay, so that's the shed. As far as the garage, we've looked at all kinds of possibilities for the garage, including eating up a portion of the existing carport and bringing it out further. In discussions with the neighbors, neighbors have all been very clear that they would support the project wholeheartedly if we were, coming up with some kind of parking solution, which is a real issue along this private drive, which we are in this auto court, which cannot be done in another orientation of the garage. The dual front setback issue was another difficulty for us. We have 30-foot setback essentially or front yard setback on two edges. The edge that's on the private drive, we've worked very hard to keep the main portion of the house out of that setback, and the only portion that is in it is in the garage. That was a difficulty, and we believe that the solution that we have now is essentially the only solution that allows us a covered, enclosed garage on this property to fulfill the role of a non-conforming open carport now. The landscape issue, we hear you loud and clear. There's a difficulty when you're going to a conceptual review is how much of your client's money do you spend in putting together drawings to get just conceptual move forward and find out if you have a project versus developing a lot of drawings at great cost to them, and you still might get shot down. So because that landscape drawing is not a requirement for conceptual review, we didn't pursue that, but we most certainly will for the next round. And I believe that is all the comments that I have. Bob, do you have any?
I'm glad that
You need to speak in the microphone, please. Thank
I
you.
want to emphasize also the importance that we feel the city places on having an enclosed conforming two-car garage and to mitigate or to abate the non-conforming carport.
Okay, other comments?
Are we allowed to
Yes.
make comments? Yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to make
let's
one
go
too.
one at a time.
Bob McGlashan, I just wanted
Twist that back. Please.
sorry, I just wanted you to know that in meeting with the neighbors on the hedge, because you brought that up specifically, the people directly across from us are adamant that they don't want us to take the hedge down. So in meeting with our neighbors, which we try to do across the whole street, we wanted to be fair to them. We are lowering the height to take in some mountain view now, but just so you know, that was their opinion, was to keep the hedge.
Yes.
The other comment I was going to make is along the edge of the property, which is where the bedroom wing is, you don't have that full ocean view that you have at the other side. In fact, you're very closely abutting the neighbor in the forward position, and so it becomes really dark in that end. So the solution to us was the shed roof and the higher windows in order to lighten the area up. So I would welcome any of you. This is a private drive. You're welcome to park in our driveway if you want to come up and take a look at that. But you'll be able to see that that is the only way you can see the greenery up above. And we've tested that because as you lay in our bed, you can look out the window and you would see another wall on both sides instead of the beautiful view that we have in that extended area of lawn above it. So it would be a chance to see the oak trees and stuff. So as I said, anybody's welcome anytime to park and just walk there, and then it might make more sense to you.
I want to reiterate on that. It's not that I'm against the shed roof. It's just I'm looking at the composition.
Sure.
And the pitch is not right. If you look at where these pitches are, as you come across like this, you know, and you get shadow line, even though this is all facing north. It's not so much that I just don't think the pitch is right yet. It's not there where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Given the composition of the architecture you're trying to create here and the vocabulary of the architecture. So that's my comment.
Sure.
It's
Sure,
not
that's
that
fine.
I'm.
Yeah, I was just explaining why
Yeah.
we were.
And I
why we
understand
went-
reasoning.
Why
I
we
can-
even went to that point.
And I understand
yeah.
completely why you did that, and I don't have a problem with that at all. It just doesn't look right at this point.
I actually really appreciate that clarification. Thank you for that.
Okay, so it has to do with proportion, and it has to do with how you lay out that elevation. That's why I think Mr. Miller's comment is important, because that's how we look at things. So, you know, the sales pitch needs to be a little bit more refined. Okay, other comments? Okay, if there are no other comments, the applicant needs some guidance here. He needs to know whether we have any positive comments about the issue of the garage and the setback line. That will give him some idea of whether he will be comfortable proceeding to the staff hearing officer, and certainly any other comments on the rest of the project before their return, I assume, at some point for project design approval.
Well, I'll give it a stab at it. So this is just for comments, right?
Comments only.
Okay, the board makes the following comments on the move to for continue the project indefinitely or 2 weeks? To the staff hearing officer. Okay.
Well, wait a minute. Before you get there, if you're making a motion to move it to the staff hearing officer, then more than likely your comments will be positive. If your comments are not positive for the staff hearing officer, then you need to say that. One way, it gets either way, okay?
Okay.
And your motion needs to be clear about when it returns, it's returning to the full board or to consent, wherever. That just needs to be part of your motion.
Okay, so I'm making the following comments, having it return to the full board. I reserve whether it's going to the staff hearing officer till I complete my motion, and we'll see where we go with it. The board appreciates and supports the style of architecture that is being proposed. However, the board feels that the renderings of the elevations should be more of a aesthetic nature as opposed to technical nature. I'll let you develop that. The board also feels that the shed roof on the particular end where the master bedroom should be possibly restudied in terms of proportions and the slope of the roof. The board, as a majority, can support the location of the proposed garage. We would like to see a more developed landscape plan. And I think those are my comments.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there further comments to the motion? I'm sorry.
And look at studying at reducing the square footage FARs.
Okay. I'm going to suggest one other item.
Yes.
Just as a comment noted, that the board would appreciate having some sense of how they're going to handle the site drainage erosion issue along Los Alturas before they return, so we get some idea as a part of the landscape effort.
A study of some kind of erosion.
Whatever they're going to do,
control.
We just want to see it before it comes back. Otherwise, they make it
included in their landscape plan.
And that's fine with the seconder?
Okay. All right. Is there any other comments to the motion? Okay. I'm going to be voting against the motion only because I'm not comfortable with the garage yet. And it's not to say that will be voting against this house or this project in whatever the future presentations are. It's just I'm not there yet. So
that's why I didn't want to say staff hearing officer.
But I may be the only vote against it. So I'll be voting against the motion just because I'm not comfortable with the garage yet.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question
yes,
for
ma'am.
the staff. Could you read us back what I guess she's got it in her notes about what you said about the FAR? Did you just say study it, or did you want to be a little more
recommends reducing it.
Reduce the FAR.
Yeah.
Is that good enough?
Do you have some number you want to hit, or are you just saying reduce it?
I actually put it in a rather nebulous study studying reducing the FAR. I don't have a specific number.
Okay,
so that's in your
we'll
motion.
Just go with
that's the motion on the floor. Okay. Right.
And what was the part about, you said the garage placement is acceptable?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? So there's a motion, second on the floor. No further comments. The chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Two opposed. Any abstentions? Okay. Motion passes 3-2. And we will see you back here after we go to the staff hearing officer.
Well,
thank you.
Did you forward it to the staff hearing? You forwarded it to the full board.
Yes, I forwarded it to staff hearing officer. Yes.
Oh, all right. But you said to be returned to full board. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Turn to the full board. All right. We're on to item, can we get there? Yeah, we can get there. Item number 5, 2517 Selrose Lane.
They're all new items. My God.
Okay. I'm going to read into the record the project design, project description. This is a new item. This is a proposal to demolish a 32 square feet of existing garage to construct a 657 square foot one-story addition, a 567 square foot second floor addition, a new 500 square foot detached accessory structure, a new pool with pool equipment and associated grading, an interior model to the existing 1,187 square foot single family dwelling with an attached 480 square foot garage. Proposed total of 4,093 square feet is 97% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio. Property is located in a non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone and requires a coastal review. Staff hearing officer review is requested to allow conforming additions to the dwelling in the required front and interior setbacks. This is here for comments only because it requires staff hearing officer and coastal review. And before I let you start, I have a question to Katie. Katie, I think I understand the staff hearing officer portion of your comments only. What's the coastal review issue?
Just that you need to examine it as it's in a non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, if you could introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Tom Oxner, project architect.
Brian Broderson, landscape architect.
Okay.
And if I could, I've got just more color. It's the same set. It's just that these have more color in them. It's easier to use. So this is this property is a double width lot near Mesa Lane on Selrose. I'm going to jump into a site plan here, and the existing house is approximately 2,400 square feet, and there is a detached, really a shed back in the deeper portion of the property. The property sits in such a way that it is the size of a double lot, but it's one parcel. The existing residence is slightly over the property line on the left, and as you can see in the front, it sits about 4 feet into the front yard setback. The existing house, in terms of its appearance, this image right here is a good indication of its presence from Selrose.
Yummy.
And as you follow these photos around, I've got a couple of aerials on here too that give you the size of the lot relative to the building. It's mostly one story. It's got an attached garage, and then there's a small second floor on it right now. The idea is to update the house and add onto it, and we're looking to add onto it into the depth of the property and obviously away from the way that it's crowding two setbacks right now. So in terms of the site planning, if we look at the proposed site plan, we're looking to remove that existing shed. It's got a 7'6" plate. It's really not a very usable structure, and build a pool with a pavilion down in the southwest corner of the lot. The addition would then be extending into the property, and we'd enclose a portion of the entrance to give the floor plan a sense of entry. I can go over that in the plan when we get there. Pool equipment would be located down in the far southeasterly corner. And one thing, it may be confusing, Project North and True North are 180. So I'm going to be referring to it front and back and left and right.
Okay.
But so let's see. Now, in terms of this project is a 97% FAR, and I want to explain. I understand anything over 85% is a sensitive topic here. I did just a little exhibit. As some of these larger sites, they get a little penalized with the way that the FAR is calculated. So what I did was I did an FAR calculator and presumed that we take the proposed finished product, which is 4,000 square feet total, and that is, as we can see, a 97% of the FAR of this 13,000 and change lot. If we were to split the lot in half, you would have 6,500 square foot lot, which is a typical Mesa parcel. If you take that house and split it in half, so if you just take everything and split it in half, you'd end up with two side-by-side parcels with structures that were 71% of the FAR. So if this project were split in half and you took the bulk and the lot, it would be two 71% FAR homes side by side. And I think the aerials will show you in terms of how that could actually look because of the size of the site. But let's get into, we're going to come back to Brian's going to go through the site plan with you here. In terms of the existing house, we're keeping the bulk of the house to the left, and the garage stays where it is, and we're adding out to the right side of the house, and then putting a master bedroom up top. So this is the proposed first floor plan. There is an existing deck off of the back. We're looking to push it out a little bit to create more of a usable area in the middle of the deck, and then to create better circulation down to the property on one end, and then right off of that usable space. And then this is predominantly the new area of the first floor. Moving up to the second floor, the existing portion of the house is here, and then the new portion gets extended out towards the open side of the parcel. The pavilion, which is obviously included in the FAR of 97%, is 500 square feet, and it's designed to open out onto a future pool. And it's kind of got an open feeling, and it sits down in the lower corner. The property slopes approximately 10% down towards the ocean, away from Selrose. And then, so what we're doing with the architecture is really to play with the existing. This structure was built in the early 60s. It was actually built very well. And it's in good shape, and we're trying to utilize the existing vocabulary with the structure, but update it. This is the existing building. Kind of looks better in elevation than it does in photos. But the idea is to retain these heavy timber rafters that come out with the T&G that spans between them. So the proposed architecture is, it retains the board and bat siding, and it introduces reconfigured windows that add a little bit more of a cohesive, open feeling to the house. We're extending all the same eaves. The guardrails get updated.
Is this the front of the house?
This is the back of the house.
The back of the house.
Right. The front of the house is right here. And so the back of the house, then, it has a storage understory here. This is for, it's a low ceiling. And the idea is to get that deck on the rear side to work well with the subtle slope of the property as it works down. And then additionally, using those heavy timber beams and that low pitch, and extending some of the roofs out around that back side of the structure. So the entry, getting back to the modifications, so a portion of this off to the left is sitting in the setback. We're not touching that other than replacing windows on that left side of the house. But it still requires a modification because the whole process has changed a bit, and if there is a portion of the existing structure, it needs to go through the mod process. In terms of the front yard setback, we have the garage that extends 4 feet into the front yard, and then the bedroom wing. What we're proposing is to add a roof over the garage door, which requires support because it is in the front yard setback, and it helps with that austere facade that you see from the photos of the front of the house. And the pavilion carries along the same detailing. I guess one thing, and I'll get to it, I've got some colored sketches introducing some poured concrete walls to accent the wood siding and create some base and grounding around the building. Let's see, I'm going to move back to the front. I've got, in terms of the sort of the color scheme and the overall feeling of the, way back here. So these are some modeled images of the building. So from the front, the idea is to introduce a board-formed concrete that works its way around a portion of the base. This model was without the eyebrow over the front. The elevations in the working drawings here show that, and I think we've added it because it seemed a little austere. And then, but the concept is to update the colors, add a little bit of contemporary detailing, and create some better graduation of massing around the building than what currently has. So I think I'm ready for it, Brian. You can. Okay. Do you have your?
Yeah, I've got a site plan here that's slightly more updated.
Yeah, put that one up there.
If you want to scoot closer and use that. Sure.
Okay, so as mentioned, there's a severe slope from about mid-lot on down, which creates a continuous slope this way, and our strategy turned out to be to try to create a level terrace at this level, and then a terrace down here, and then transition the slope. This is a Tier 2 project as far as stormwater management is concerned, and so our strategy for our BMP is to introduce an infiltration basin, if you will, and have the stair from the upper deck. Actually, the deck comes across and then accesses the lawn and the play area for the kids up on the upper portion, and then transitions down and jogs and actually goes over the little stream, dry stream, sort of as a feature. And this creates a little bit of a discovery play area for the kids, a little run uphill. This will be, we anticipate this will be a native landscape area. And then, of course, the pool deck with room for chairs and engaging with the pavilion. And on access with the pavilion, there's an existing rock wall, very nicely done sandstone wall. And so the idea is to have a sandstone wall that's of some more considerable height in front of the pool equipment, so that from the pool you'll see a very nice wall with some sort of very small fountain feature against that wall that you see on access with the pavilion. And then behind that there's storage and also a nice little spot for the small fountain that would be required, the equipment to drive the little fountain, and then the pool equipment here. In the corner is a little seating area, and that's sort of the way the back works. At the front, the intention is to expand the driveway entrance to the garage a little bit, give it more of a horizontal feel with the house. And then there's a side entrance with a little bench, and then extend the wood fence up to a series of board formed concrete walls. One here at the entry, and then a low one by the street, and then another small wing wall off of the garage. Little segmented concrete entry to match the house, and of course helping with water situation as well. So we don't have any continuous concrete at that location. We did insert a concrete pad here, and that's meant for play for the family. And then a structure of a bit undetermined exactly what that'll be, but the idea is for it to be a shade structure and a place for the kids to play or for the parents to watch them, that sort of thing. And screening, this is existing screening on the south side or the east side, and then a new screen hedge along the west side toward the neighbor there. And that's kind of it.
Thank you. Anything else? Katie left the room, and I had a question for her, so she'll come back. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Could you all hand in your slips?
They're right here.
So, Katie, do we have slips, please?
The yellow.
Oh, they're over here. I got 1, 2, 3. three? Okay. Katie, before we start on public comment, the modifications have been reviewed by staff at this point?
Yes, Joanne has looked at them.
Okay. And then do we have any written comment?
No.
Okay, so we have 3 public speakers. If you'll come forward, please. And I'm going to ask you to sit in that chair and speak in this microphone. The first speaker is Alan Alexander. Yes. You can come and speak in here, please. You have 2 minutes to address the board.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Could you speak into the microphone?
This is all being recorded, and they can't hear you if you don't speak in the microphone.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I think the lot presents the problem that, or this property that happens when you put 2 lots together in an area that has a certain character and end up with a mansion in a neighborhood that is just not mansion ready. The problem we have here is that this house is not in character at all with the neighborhood, and that what we see is the square footage, and I'm not sure exactly how much greater it is. It seems to be a difference between what the description says and what was said here today, but it's certainly at least a third more, if not double or triple more. What I do notice is that it is going to be coming far closer. Oh, by the way, my name is Alan Alexander, and I represent Joseph Alexander, who owns the property below, which would be, that's one, and then there's another property to the right of that. Both of us are below that property. And what's going to happen here is it's very much going to canyonize the view and feel of the properties that are below that. We are going to be looking up and seeing a much more massive property above us. Also, the deck now comes greater back towards those properties. Now that will seem much more burdensome and oppressive to the neighbors below. I would also want to point out that this pavilion that's proposed is going to be right over the backyard of 219 Balboa Drive. And that will be very burdensome, oppressive, very much destroy the solitude and peaceful enjoyment or privacy that exists there now. So I think that those are very much issues that I have. The other thing I would mention, a couple of things, is the pool. I'd be very concerned about that. I lived in that property for 11 years, and when the current fence that's back there fell down so many times that the current owner at that time, Joe Moore, had to literally put in a full-on deep footing in the back in order to actually be able to put any kind of fence along the property line. And I think we're also dealing here, I'm very concerned about, there's a lot of deck, I'm seeing a lot of roof, a lot of deck, a whole lot of flatscape, and that drainage is going to come right down into the properties below it.
If you could wrap it up.
And I think that's the majority of what I had to say, is that this is just a mansion that's out of character with the neighborhood, which currently has houses that are probably 1,700, maybe maximum 2,000 square feet. Here you're going to 4,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Steve Hansen, please. Welcome. You have 2 minutes to address the board.
Thank you. I'm Steve Hansen. I own the property at 222 Balboa Drive, directly below or south towards the ocean from this proposed property. And I, too, am concerned with the scale of the project. The biggest concern is just the sheer square footage and the looming effect it might have on us. I am fortunate to live in this very quiet, peaceful, tranquil neighborhood, and especially in the evenings when people come to this neighborhood for the Douglas Preserve and for Mesa Lane Beach. But in the evenings, they're gone. There are no thoroughfares. It's just a very quiet, tranquil, wonderful place, and I feel so lucky to have landed here and live here. My peaceful enjoyment is my refuge, that my backyard. if we were to put a large home and a swimming pool right in the corner, I'm right in the corner where the swimming pool and especially the pool equipment would be right there. The pool equipment would probably be 35 feet from my open master bedroom window, and that the noise of that would be bad. Yeah, I could kind of point out what I'm talking about here.
Is that you there?
Yeah, this is us here. I'm right on that corner. The pool equipment would be right here. So, and the pool would be here. The big deck looming. Just the presence of this home, the impact it would have, especially on these two homes, is pretty profound. It would change the dynamic of that neighborhood, but specifically of those three properties, and probably one on east and west as well, pretty dramatically. And it actually is concerns me greatly. I think it would, and my wife also is concerned about the scale of the project. And I do have a list of things that I could go through.
If you could wrap up, please.
Okay, including just structurally, that slope that was talked about. There's probably a 7-foot height differential between our properties in that little area, and with a big pool there and weight and the funky clay and shale soil that's in the area. Anyway, I'm familiar with this landscape architect and this architect. I think they both do fine aesthetic work. They're good. I just think this project belongs on a much bigger property.
Okay, thank you. Ginny Slaughter, please.
Good afternoon. I am the tenant at 219 Balboa Drive, and I just wanted to speak to some privacy concerns. Currently, our western side yard is visible from the upstairs of the current dwelling at Selrose, and with the proposed expansions, I'm concerned that the opposite side of our yard will also be fully exposed to the residents, giving us no privacy anymore. I also noticed there was no vegetative screening proposed on the side between the new residents and the two on Balboa, and that concerns me greatly. There is currently no vegetative screening in place, and that's because there's just been some recent re-landscaping. So currently, that's what it looks like, and it seems very looming from behind our house, I can tell you. In addition, I'd just like to point out that the pavilion in its proposed location is immediately adjacent to the home office that I telecommute from. So I am concerned about noise, again, with no screening or any sort of noise buffer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fourth speaker, William Hawksworth, please.
Yes.
Speak into this microphone, please.
Hello, Bill Hawksworth. I live or have a house in my family that is at 2516 Selrose, right across to the north. I'm seeing a lot of stuff. I guess you're getting a modification for the front yard, but there's a lot of things that are now planned in that modification of the 20-foot setback. If in fact it is a 20-foot setback, you're saying that the house already abuts into the 20-foot setback. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the modification
is to continue to allow it to be there.
Right. But then would it ordinarily be that this cement pad would also need a modification? No, that would not require a modification. And this is all just driveway, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really just this second story of the garage.
Structure.
And
it's the structure, yes.
Right. It just, I guess, is a phenomena that is connected to the filling up of the property. Everything is right out to the 6-foot setback. there's a lot of activity in that space. I know one thing that, I mean, I can't really complain about it, but I will, because I have a nice little window on the first floor of this building up here. It has a view shed that has a glimpse of the ocean.
Tim, just before you go further, just to be clear, are we talking about this house right here with the surfboard fence?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay,
the surfboard fence.
Okay, thank you.
Now I'm in trouble. So, and then finally, in deference to these folks to the south of this property, this is a slope back here. I don't know if it's certainly going to be a filled slope by the time they're done with the backyard to carry these levels. And this doesn't appear to have any, you were saying that it was going to be infiltration, yes, infiltration. There's no plumbing that is going to deliver any water to the street in the back.
We'll be able to review that for you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to address this project? Okay, we're going to bring it back to the board for questions, but before we go to do you have a comment, sir?
I do.
Then you need to come and sit in this chair here. And Kathleen, can you get him a speaker slip, please? You can introduce yourself,
I've
please.
been an experience sitting here for a short comment.
Yeah, just comes. Okay, now.
I represent my property, 926 Mission Ridge Road.
Okay. This is not Mission Ridge yet.
It is 9. Oh, it's not.
We're not on that item yet. You have to wait.
I go back sitting?
Yes. You have to wait a little bit longer. I'm sorry. Sorry, I know you've been sitting there all afternoon, but we're just not there yet.
I want you to know it is a pleasure.
Sorry. We're not there yet. Okay. Before we go to questions to the board, Katie, I want to cover a couple of things technically. This is a 13,000 square foot lot of some sort. I think that's what the total number is. The combined two lots. So on the issue of the FAR, if the board were choose to approve 98, whatever it was, 98% FAR, is this one of the properties, because of the size of the lot, that requires a 5-member majority vote? Is that where the rule comes in? I was trying to look it up. But
I would believe so, Mr. Chair.
No?
I would believe so.
Oh, it does. Okay. So if and when we get to that discussion, then there needs to be 5 of us that would agree to something larger than 85%. That, as I understand, that's the rule?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then with regards to the 500 square foot outbuilding, because this lot is now combined, that's allowed, correct, as a separate building?
I'm sorry, which building?
There is
pavilion, the pool pavilion.
A little pavilion out here, 500 square feet. So given the size of this lot, if that's allowed?
Yes.
Okay. And then, let's see if there was another staff question. No, I think the rest are for the applicant. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to questions of the board, and then I'll allow you to give comments. Question?
Not yet, thank you.
I have no questions.
Questions? Anyone else? Okay, I have a few. I want to go back to your photographs. I was out at the site on Sunday, and I didn't walk into the back. I only looked at it because the gate was open in the front on the street. This gate was open, so I was able to look back and see that little shed element back here. But in these photographs, there appears to be, am I looking at a door that accesses something below here? What's happening down there?
It's a crawl space. It's about 4.5 feet high or so. You can't stand up in there, but it's a raised foundation, so it extends about halfway into the depth of the...
But it's not habitable space?
Oh, no, it's dirt floor. You can't even stand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the front fence. When I was over there yesterday, there was a boat trailer parked on the lawn here. This gate was open, and based on your new proposal, let's see if I can get to it.
For the
I'm looking for your
landscape plan?
new site plan.
The
Well,
landscape?
that's fine. That'll
Okay.
work. So it shows that you're going to keep this existing wood fence, but is it changing from some point?
It's turning here.
It's turning here. So from there to there, it kind of stays as it is today?
Exactly.
Okay. And then this is the new piece?
Correct.
Okay. And then, did you give us the size of this deck? Did you have the square footage of that? I was looking for that. I don't find it.
Well, most of that deck's existing.
So, yeah, what's existing and how much
Okay,
is new?
I think I
Do you
can
have that
shed
on?
light on that, yeah. So,
Somewhere.
right, I think it's the next page. So right here, so basically, this deck's existing. What we're looking to do is to come out.
Okay. So
with a-
roughly, what's the size of that guy?
Oh, I don't know, 8 by, what do we have? 30, 45, what's
8 times 45?
8 times 45.
30, 350 feet, more or less, and you're adding what? Another,
This and then a piece here.
so another 200 square feet?
Okay,
I don't know.
it could be, yeah.
Okay, so we're up to 500 plus square feet. Okay. All right, let's see. Deck, front fence. Okay, and then just to be clear, the modifications, is this the right drawing?
Yeah. This
Okay,
is a good one.
so so we're looking, keep that and keep that, so that's the mod.
And to take that eyebrow and continue it over.
Right, so there's some architectural treatment
Yes.
there, so there's an aesthetic issue that we need to look at as a board, because they're changing, not only are they asking for the mod, but they're also changing some of the architecture. And then there's a mod required for this little sliver?
That's existing, correct. That's about
That's
a foot.
that's
Yeah.
it for the mods, right?
Right. The improvements are all well back away from
setback, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I think those are my questions. Are there other questions?
I have just a
Yes.
couple. What is the pavilion, and does it have a bathroom and a kitchen?
The pavilion is allowed. It's a 500 square foot maximum detached accessory structure, which is allowed in the zone. It's got a half bath, which is limited to a very small size, which is dictated by the planning department. And it's the purpose of it is an accessory to the pool.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, before we go to comments, the applicant has a couple of comments.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I would just like to respond to some of the neighbor concerns. And I think I know this property pretty well now. And I just want to point out, and I think maybe the best way to do that is the aerial photos, that one of the advantages that you get with a larger property is that, and especially this one, where we've located the second story, I think this is a good, well, you know what, I think the landscape plan probably shows it pretty well. And I'll go back to the aerial photo, but we're proposing, the second story right in this area. If you look at where we're proposing this relative to the side yards of this property, we're going to have more separation than I think you'll have on any property around with regards to a two-story addition and its proximity to the side yard. If we go to the aerial photos, I think that you get a feel for the kind of separation that currently exists with this two-story house here relative to the neighboring parcels. What really is kind of unique here is that the size of the lot is, even though we're over that 85, we're going to have much more separation than what currently exists. It's kind of like a built-in buffer, I would think, to the neighboring homes. And then in terms of the screening, we do have a screening designed for that.
Let's
south.
stay on the aerial. We do have
Yeah.
screening on both of the east and west property lines.
Mm-hmm.
In the back, we can certainly increase that and maybe modify that slightly. It is important to note that there is a very large structure there. This is a very large existing structure, and it's relatively flat from where my pencil is all the way over to this side of the lot. So this is relatively flat, although it's acknowledged that from the fence line going down to the neighbor properties, there is a a significant drop. We don't have that survey information, but I understand that's 7 feet. So we would be working our way back, and the pool is set back significantly away from that.
And then one final thing is that the pool and the pavilion are designed to be set on existing grade. We're not raising that up.
And the infiltration, all the infiltration is intended to be, back away from the slope. We're not intending to go to this slope with a lot of infiltration.
Okay. All right, let's bring it back. That's it with your comments?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's bring it back to the board for comments. This is comments only. We need to address the aesthetic appropriateness of the front of the house, which is in the existing setback, and the proposed architectural changes. And it does, in fact, get a coastal review, so there will be several things we'll have to look at. I assume there's a CEQA statement that we'll ultimately have to make.
Well, it's a categorical exemption because it's existing facilities. However, you'll still need to comment on the coastal review.
Right? So
wait,
comments.
What did you just say? Did you say the coastal review isn't going to happen?
No. It's CEQA. It has a categorical exemption for existing facilities. The coastal review is separate from that.
Has an exemption for existing facilities.
For CEQA, yes, not coastal.
What is CEQA, just so the public knows what you're
California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other comments? Comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sheet A3.1.
A3.1.
I understand what you're saying about the, you're basically working with 2 lots. But I'm having I'm uncomfortable with the size, bulk, and scale of this house with regard to the neighborhood. I can't support it in its current iteration. I think the roof lines are kind of complicated. I think there's a more simpler approach to use, and like I said, I'm not comfortable with the FAR. I think it's way too high for the neighborhood. I think that really needs to be restudied, reduced, be a little more sympathetic to the neighborhood. Those are my comments.
Other comments?
Yes, I agree with my partner here to my right. The north elevation I find particularly large. It's I couldn't make the size, bulk, and scale findings in the NPO findings for this house as it is right now. It's far, far too big for the neighborhood.
Okay. Other comments?
I agree with what Denise and Brian said, and I also am concerned about the placement of the pool equipment.
I'm really glad to hear that my board members feel that way, and I really appreciate the public coming too, because this neighborhood has a lot of character, and this does not fit, it does not meet our size, bulk, and scale guidelines.
Okay. I'm going to go to my comments, and I want to go back to this area plan. Just to remind everyone, we had a home that's actually under construction now, right here. I forgot what the name of that little street is. That was reviewed by our board.
Balboa.
We had
second story.
We had a second story that was under 17 feet 6 inches, which is a requirement for a single-story house. That, in fact, was heavily reviewed by the community. We had many members of the community here, discussed it at length. It was, in fact, then our decision to approve it was appealed to the City Council. The City Council ruled in the board's favor, and so the house was approved and it's under construction. But my point is, it was heavily reviewed by the community, and one of their biggest concerns was size, scale, and bulk. We also reviewed a home that's right here at the end of this little cul-de-sac street. I think that's Balboa. Also had similar concerns. We just reviewed a home right here on Mesa Lane, right about there, which had similar concerns. We had the architect in that case reduce the floor heights. We had him squeeze some things in. We eliminated a deck up on the roof. We did a lot of things to get that, at least for the majority of the board, into some context of the community in terms of compatibility. So we've just recently had almost 4 homes here. If you've been up on Selrose, this little piece of Selrose right here, in my opinion, needs a lot of help. There's a lot of properties there that need a lot of TLC. And so this at the kind of the end of that little piece, the street narrows right there for some reason. Historically, it was never improved all the way out to as the other streets are. I don't know why. But in any case, I think in general that the architectural approach is going to make this street nicer, but I can't support 98%. This is one where I would think we've really got to get this to 85%. And I was looking at the floor plan, looking at, okay, if we tell this applicant to get this thing to 85%, are we really inhibiting the applicant from having the kind of house with the kind of functions that they like in it? And in looking at the floor plan and even the furniture layout, because it kind of helps me, I can see very easily reducing this back to 85%. The bathroom could be smaller. The distance between that wall and the sink, that could close in. The tub, yeah, it would be nice to have a corner tub, but there's no reason why the tub can't go like that. The master bedroom is really large. That could get cut way back, and they could still have the same furniture arrangement. The closet's probably okay. Laundry's probably okay, although that even could get cut back a few inches. So I think that plan could get sucked in and would help get to the 85%. I think by doing that then drives this being sucked in. So I think that's really important. I was out there, as I said, yesterday, and I stood at the end of that little cul-de-sac street, and I was looking right in. I was in the street, not in people's yards, and you look right into the windows of the current house, wherever that picture went. You can stand on the street and look right up into it. So that means the folks that are in the house, you can look right up into these windows. They're looking down at everybody's yard. So I think that this project really has got to go a ways to solve the privacy issue. And it may be a combination of landscaping, and it may be a combination of reshaping the elevation. And I know a couple of you made a comments about the north or south elevation.
A3.1.
A3.1. I'm not terribly concerned, Brian, about the chopping of the roof. That kind of, in some ways, in my mind, kind of helps the articulation. Sure. But I think this is way too high. I think proportionally that could be lowered down. I think that could be lowered down. And I think, that would help it considerably. I'm not overly concerned about the size of the deck, although like everything else, that we have to deal with on the Mesa, because everybody wants decks and they all want all their stuff outside. I think one of the things that will be concerning is the noise reverberating off all this glass, because it's facing all those backyards on the houses below. So how you deal with the acoustics up here might be a point of discussion. I'm a little concerned. I can quite frankly, maybe not this owner, but sometime in the future, that goes right to a rental unit with a place to park up here. I mean, I know that it's allowed. 500 square feet is allowed. We see this often with other applications, and I'm still of the mind that we're allowing future extra rental spaces, because with just a few tricks of the plumbing trade, they can get a shower in here and a sink, and all of a sudden you've got a kitchen. So I know that zoning deals with that, but I'm still not convinced. I'm not even sure it's in the right place, as some of the neighbors have pointed out. I think that the pool equipment down here, as we've seen in other properties, can be handled, but we really want to understand the acoustic enclosure and the decibels, et cetera, because you can still hear the hum in the night, in the evening, till the sun goes down, of equipment. So where that pool equipment sits is probably pretty important. And I'm concerned about this paving up here, because I can see we get to the end and, all of a sudden I don't have a gate here, and I can take the trailer I've been parking on the lawn out here and park it in here now, which you're not allowed to do. And, that's a little trick that can be played. So I'm not convinced that that's an appropriate piece of landscaping, particularly when we got to deal with the stormwater tier issue. And just so the public understands, and if anybody correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, the purpose of the stormwater management plan is not to allow any water to leave this site. So in other words, water that is accumulated on the site because of hard surfaces, roof surfaces, et cetera, has to find a way to be retained. That's what this element is here being proposed, and it'll be engineered as we go through this process so that the engineers will tell us that the water produced from a rainfall on this site will land in here. So I want the public to understand that the city already has in place criteria to make sure that water doesn't leave this site. And the designers are obligated to come up with an engineering solution, a landscape engineer solution that accounts for that. So as we go through that process, that will be addressed and accounted for, and it's something this board is required to look at. So in terms of the front of the house and the modification request, let me go to your elevation. That's the existing. Go to 3.2. Is that the one? Yeah, there it is. I think that's a great improvement. I like the idea here. I could be supportive of allowing the house to remain where it is. That's how it was built, and it got as a lot of places in Santa Barbara are, when they rezoned everything, they laid in setback requirements that were different than when the houses were built. But I think by doing that, reducing this down, and then the composition of landscaping, of screening, whatever that piece might look like, will really help from the neighbor's perspective and from the streetscape, will really kind of help to put that into a composition that probably could be acceptable to the neighborhood. So I think, one, getting it down to 85%, rethinking the composition, particularly from a landscape point of view on the front elevation, and then really working at reducing the scale of the back elevation, the north elevation, is going to be important. That'll kind of help, I think, some of the window exposure that will be seen by adjacent neighbors up to the second floor. We're as a board, we've mentioned this several times, we're not obligated to guarantee people's private views from individual windows, but we are very cognizant of privacy issues and want to be careful about where windows are placed. So that'll be something we look at, and when you come back, you might help us a little bit about if you can understand where windows are in the adjacent properties, so we can kind of figure out, are the windows the right size, or can they be moved over a little bit, avoid a privacy issue. That would be most helpful. If the board is agreement that the 500 square foot pavilion is okay, might think about reducing the slope of the roof a little bit, but there's not really a whole lot. I mean, it's only, I measured, I think it was only 14 feet high from here to here. So it's fairly low key, but again, I'm not comfortable with that, but zoning allows it, so we may not have a choice. I think those are the bulk of my comments. So anyone else with comments? Okay, if not, then the chair would look for someone to make a motion. Obviously, the applicant would be looking for positive comments for the modifications so they could proceed to modification hearing officer, and then any additional comments before they return, and if in fact they return to the full board or to the consent calendar.
I still need a little clarification,
yes,
if I may interject.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
So let's just look at the site plan here. So I'm trying to understand the 85% rationale. And when the property was first purchased, it was, the debate was, do you split it down the middle? Because is the board going to give you, are they going to understand the inherent value of a large lot? If 85% is going to be, it's artificially low when you look at these large lots. I mean, you can put a lot line right there and put another 2,400 square foot home there, or at least certainly a heck of a pavilion. And
I understand all that, but the rule is, as I understand it, because this lot is less than 15,000 square feet, then this board has an obligation to really pursue the 85%. And we have to consider this as one property now. That's how we're looking at it. And so the board is going to have to come up with 5 people in favor of something larger than 85%. Okay? That's how the rule works for this size property. It's different when we get to beyond 15,000 square feet.
They're also arguing against the nature of the neighborhood.
So,
So it's just so that I understand, it's preferable to have two homes here than
we're not going there because it's not happening. This is one lot. We have to look at it as one lot. And in my view, now somebody else may have a different view, that's how we look at it. We're not going to subject ourselves to what ifs this were 2 lots. It's not 2 lots, it's 1 lot. So that's how we're going to look at it. Okay. Right. Any other comments? Okay, then the chair will look for a motion to give direction to the applicant.
All right, I'll try to make a motion. The board appreciates the quality and style of architecture with the following comments. The board can support the modification as aesthetically appropriate regarding the front of the house. That's in the front yard setback.
I'm sorry, did you say can or can't?
Can. Yes, can support it. The board would like to see the house reduced to 85% FAR. The board would also like to have the applicant study in the landscape plan the large concrete area in the north area. Restudy that as a little more landscaping, more appropriate to a Tier 3 situation. Study reducing possibly the slope of the roof on the pavilion. And that's my motion.
Do you want to make any comments about the elevations?
The scale.
Well, I think reducing it to 85 is a challenge enough for him. I think he'll work on that.
Okay. All right, that's your motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay. We will see you back here. All right. Let's go to last item, number 6, 920 Mission Ridge Road. This is a new item, so I'll read into the record project description. This is a proposal for a minor exterior alterations to the existing 2-story single-family residence, including a new 662 square foot attached 1-story addition, a new 500 square foot detached accessory building, replaced decks and new decks at master bedroom and accessory building. Also proposed is a new pool that will require 250 cubic yards of cut and 10 cubic yards of fill. The proposed total of 3,494 square feet on a 47,138 square foot lot. The Hillside Design District is 70% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Any action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Sure. This one's got a little more information in it, so I brought 2 of these sets.
Oh, okay.
I'll take it.
Sorry.
It's not folded.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brett Ettinger with Ferguson Ettinger Architects, and thanks for being so patient and working so long into the evening here. We have before us today a proposal for a master bedroom addition to an existing 2-story home located at 1920 Mission Ridge Road. I'll try to acquaint you real quick with the site itself so you can get your bearings in terms of where it is. It is a flag lot that is essentially, not to scale, 340 feet from Mission Ridge on the north side of the ridge, other side of the Riviera. The site basically faces north toward the mountains, and I would say that the proposed addition and the proposed accessory building are completely invisible. And I'm going to show that in a minute with a series of photographs. The site is approximately 1 acre. It's accessed from an easement off of Mission Ridge. I do have an aerial here that you're all welcome to look at. It's a heavily treed, beautiful oak woodland, very rural, bucolic setting. This is the picture from across Mission Ridge looking at the existing private driveway. Here's another picture looking straight onto the driveway. Again, the lot's about 350 feet or more than a football field beyond there. Heavily treed on both sides. Halfway up the lot, there are two very handsome contemporary homes on either side out the front off of Mission Ridge, here and here. However, you can't really see them, so it's hard to take photographs of them. Here's a shot turning the corner, coming to our property at the existing entrance. Beyond, you can see the existing two-story home that's nestled into this beautiful canopy of trees. Here is a picture coming closer to the what would be the west end of the two-story house. It's probably designed and built in the 70s. It's a combination of T111 siding, single-glazed, non-tempered windows and doors. And then nestled into the trees is our proposed master bedroom and proposed accessory structure. Incidentally, the master bedroom, pretty much in its exact footprint, was approved by this board, I believe, on consent a couple months ago for final approval. The project has since changed hands, new ownership, and they brought us on to look closely at that design and then add an accessory structure and a swimming pool. So that's where we're at here. Here's a shot looking from the proposed master bedroom site, looking back north past and where the driveway would be coming in. And you can see that this canopy of trees and existing shrubbery basically conceals all neighbors from view. So in turn, we can't see them, they can't see us. Here's the actual site up close, looking up and north toward Hillcrest, which is up on the ridge, again, heavily treed. I think if I was to get my bearings upside down here, there is a house up off of Hillcrest that's behind those trees. I'm sure it looks like some of the neighbors are here. That is, where am I at? That house right here. Here's another shot from across the meadow to the northwest, looking back beyond into the oaks where the proposal is. Here's a close-up of the west end of the house, southwest end of the house where we're proposing our addition, pretty much right there. It comes off the back of the dining room and attaches to the side of the house there. A little bit of the architecture of the existing house, again, 2 stories, lots of glass. The decks are in bad repair. They're dry rotted, and the railings are pretty dated and not up to code, so we're going to address that. Here's a shot from just the east side of the existing entry, looking back to where the proposed pool is on a gently sloping portion of the property. And then lastly, just in terms of inspiration for some of the design elements, someone at some point designed and constructed a rather handsome entry piece that sort of anchors the entry with some, I've heard it before, some more board-formed concrete, which provides some inspiration to some of the integrating elements in our design. The site plan you've all had a chance to look at. We're looking at forming a compound here, a very rural, bucolic compound. There were 3 or 4 elements that were paramount to us in starting the design. One was neighbor privacy and integration and sensitivity to the landscape. The other was respect for the beautiful oak woodland environment that exists here. So we've actually designed these structures around and embrace the trees. The third thing, of course, were the northern views, which the existing house takes advantage of right now with the glass out of the great room facing north. And then the fourth thing is there's some great sandstone outcroppings out there that we wanted to try and take advantage of if we can. So there's an element that we're trying to retain here inside the proposed master bathroom. The soil is great. The soils report's complete. We've got infiltration testing done, and the soil has good infiltration. We're looking at on-site stormwater retention over here in this sort of level area, which looks like it'll work well. I have some renderings here. I only brought one copy, but I thought it's a little better than the tiny little rendering on the front. Here's the existing home. Again, I mentioned that the existing glazing's not fire rated right now. It's single glazed. It's not tempered. Also, we have the old dilapidated T111 siding. Our clients are really interested in fire ratings.
Get rid of it.
It's a super high fire area. So we took that opportunity to remove the wood siding and start with a different palette that's more earth toned. We're hoping it will recede into this oak woodland environment a little better. We're going to rebuild the decks and sort of take that cue from the entry over here with that little board formed element and use this as a skirt. And then the back of the master bedroom facing upslope, and then the back of the accessory building will also be board formed. So hopefully these three elements will feel grounded. We feel that's necessary because we wanted a very light appearance for these structures to sort of recede into the environment. So what we also have are some elements, again, out of respect for the fire, the high fire area. Some of the elements to keep them delicate will be a raw, cold-rolled steel. You see that in the guardrail post and the beam and post here. We're going to take all of the existing wood beams as well as the proposed wood beams, match the size, match the cadence, but stain them a darker color. Right now they're kind of a beige and pale green color. All the new windows and doors will be dark bronze anodized, and then that's just a little excerpt of the concrete that we'll be using. And then lastly, to sort of tie the whole thing together from a site standpoint, and I'll get back to the pool in a minute, at the entry where we turn the corner right now, it's just open right into the property. We're proposing two small wings of the concrete, and then an ornamental, however, very simple ornamental steel gate that is transparent, and this will tie together with the gate or the fence as it runs around the property and gives us our required 5-foot high pool protection. The pool, of course, with the design of the compound to try and nestle around the trees, is sort of front and center for all three. This structure is off at the same level as the dining room as it was in the previously approved. This element steps down a few feet to sort of balance with the existing topography out of respect for this large oak, which it becomes a part of. And then the pool steps down a little further so that we can eliminate any need for potential guardrails. So there's some call them 2 to 2.5 foot high rubble walls or sandstone walls. We're going to take, again, to tie the stone on the site and sort of create these soft terraces down here so things can remain low. We currently don't have a landscape architect. We were waiting for the results of the arborist report and the percolation test, but we're creating a palette for some native landscape when we do get to that point. The arborist report, we have to take out one small tree. It's right where really the pool can only go there, so it's a 7-inch tree. He's recommending or requiring 2 36-inch box replacement oaks. So these are just sort of holding patterns for right now, thinking that might be nice when you enter, but that's all subject to change. The pool equipment is downslope and nestled against this 2 foot to 2'6" high wall. It's out of the setback, and we'll work very hard to get equipment that is as quiet as possible, and I'm sure there'll be some shrubbery around there, even though no one will be able to see it behind the concrete wall. There are some architectural elevations and sections. We've kept the buildings extremely low. Again, they're only 1 story. I think the height of the roof's 11-foot max off of grade. But nobody can see the house. in any event, have a little trellis off the master bedroom to provide for some dappled light through the oaks. And then here's the elevation that we hope ties everything together with the existing board form, then wrapping here, and then continuing to wrap around the back. And then the little accessory structure to finalize the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, we do have some public speaker slips. We've been sitting here all afternoon. Kathleen, did we have any other printed material? Just these, okay. And you, sir, are?
I couldn't possibly make it worthwhile.
Okay, sit down. So your name is?
Henry Van Hertem.
Okay.
They should say Van Killam, but say Van Hertem. He hurts him. My comment is limited to the pool proposal. I was quite surprised. There is fire, there is drought. My kids, they negotiate the flush and the the washing. We can't do with the little water that we use, but we try. And in that particular spirit, I received this proposal, or at least I am made aware of it, and I wonder now, how do we justify that? There is talk about dirt taken in and dirt taken out, but nobody talks about the water. I think, where do they get the water? And I still don't know how that works. Now, I did have an opportunity to learn something here while here, and that was that this board, is not concerned about water per se, and so you have to go elsewhere. Then I thought of compatibility. There is a discussion that I followed from behind, and you talked about the meadow, and it's really a park setting surrounded by homes. Deer roam around. They are born in my yard. They die sometimes in my yard. It is an entirely different setting for a pool. A pool wouldn't make any sense. It would be an offense, I think. And so, in addition to the concern we have, or we should have, all of us, with water, there is the concern that I have with the compatibility. What is going to happen to that particular environment where people, there's no fence, there's a park. People walk into properties and deer roam around, and it is wonderful. And so it is a concern that I bring here, and that is all I can say, because I haven't seen anything else. I know that the home is small and that it is actually screaming for additional space, and I'm sure that this gentleman will respond to that, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But the pool.
I could say real quickly that there is a code requirement that it be fenced off, so small childs don't fall and get drowned in it. So he'll have to fence it off for that main reason.
And I have 5 of them.
We'll address that further as we respond.
I know you will.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you very much.
Our next speaker is it Edison Army?
Thanks.
Come sit here, please.
Hi, I'm Edson Army. I live in the Luda Riggs house just behind this one. That is on 1404 Hillcrest. Let me see if I can find it here.
Here's Hillcrest. Here's downslope to the side.
So I'm right here. So he's absolutely right. There's almost a Greek bowl forest that continues all the way through here with old oak. It's an absolutely fantastic location, and in general, I support the plan. I think it's sensitive. I'm especially appreciative that the master bedroom is low and built into this.
Sir, I'm going to need you to. This is all being recorded, so they can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Should I repeat it or?
No, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm particularly appreciative of the sensitivity of the master bedroom, which is low and built into that Greek slope. Now, what I'm concerned about is the noise. Because it has this kind of Greek theater aspect to it, Currently, the air conditioning unit, which is an old unit, is placed right where the screen would be in the Greek theater, right here. And it just, when they turn it on, it just blasts through the forest and is, I think, really inappropriate to basically the park concept that is there. I noticed in the plans that they said they were going to move it, but then I was informed that, in fact, they're moving it 3 inches, which if you could work on that, I would really appreciate it. At least make sure that it meets the specifications for noise suppression, and maybe you could be really sensitive to the nature of the parkland and try to work with that. But on the whole, I have to commend you on the sensitivity that you have to us as neighbors. It's not quite right to say that you can't. It's invisible. It's not invisible from those of us who live on Hillcrest. It's invisible for those who are the neighbors on Mission Ridge.
Okay, thank you. And our last speaker is Michael Eisland.
Hi, I'm Michael Eisland, and I live next door to this property. And it began, first off, I'm a contractor, so I took a look at the prints that are available in this building and realized that the numbers were rather small for what it was actually becoming. An example, the 500-foot accessory building has an 850 square foot roof. It's a little different. A pool has no coping, doesn't count any of that stuff. As he shows in the pictures, what was the one he brought in here and just showed over here? That's improper location of the houses in the adjoining lots.
That's improper?
It's improper. I'll leave it over there where you are. Okay. Here's your proposed addition here. This is my house. Yeah. Okay. My house is not jammed up in the corner. I have a carport up there. There's a carport up there. And my house is much over here and down a bit. When Greg Schmidt, who was the previous one, who I guess got the master bedroom approved when he owned it for a year or so, and kind of cleaned things up, he started cutting some trees out, and I went down and stopped him because all of a sudden, after owning the place for, I think, 19 years, I could see this house. And he said, oh, fine, we'll stop. That's okay. So my concerns today when I look at this is that I don't think the numbers are accurate, and I think that the project's been represented less than accurate for where its size is, its scope, and what's going on. A second point is the sound, and that was good. This Greek bowl thing, I don't know why I'm not working here. The sound up there is the most unique feature. Most of the people up there die up there. That's how much we love this area. It is quiet. We can hear the people walking up and down the street in their conversations. It's the most serene place you can imagine, that whole little special bowl up there with these homes around it, and that's why we're long-term residents and not turning them over. So sound is an interesting thing there. Is that my 2 minutes? If I had my druthers, I'd cut that accessory building down quite a bit. I'd move the whole thing downhill about, away 16 feet or something like that, or move it downhill 8 feet and cut 8 foot off the back end of the pool and the accessory. I don't have any problem with the master. It's tucked into the hill over there. You brought up an interesting point, though, about a fence around that pool. None of these site plans.
Wrap up, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Katie, do we have anyone else?
No, Mr. Chair.
No other written communication? Oh, yeah. Okay, the chair is going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. We can take any action like if we felt sufficient information is provided. So questions?
Yes, I have one. So this is there's a setback along the
Structural setback.
structural
yes.
setback, so the pool doesn't count in that, I take
No.
it? Okay, interesting.
Not if it's held below 10 inches above grade.
Above grade. Okay.
So is that this line right here?
Mhm.
Now, this is the structural setback that applies to the accessory building. This is the pool setback that applies to the water.
So
water
it's not an easement designation?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
No.
I have two questions,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Could you address the discrepancy with the 500 square feet and the 850, what that was, connected to? And then could you tell us about 250 cubic yards of cut and fill? How many truckloads roughly is that? Roughly. Fred will do it.
Fred's probably going to be better at that than I am.
All
But
right.
in answer to your first question,
Okay.
I don't know if the word discrepancy was used, but perhaps it was. It's not a discrepancy. It's that the net square footage of the accessory building is 499 or just under 500 square feet as allowed by code. And I think this gentleman was scaling the roof and came up with 832 square feet.
So,
But, the roof itself has actually got less overhang on average than the existing roof around the existing house. So
The roof is roughly 34 feet by 26 feet, whatever that is.
perhaps that's what the 832 was, but there's no discrepancy in the numbers.
Okay, other questions? Yes, Lisa?
Again, those board concrete wings at the entry gate, did you tell us those were proposed at 5 feet?
Here, you didn't get to see this, but here's some existing walls that...
You have a...
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, good. I just was making sure.
You have a picture of it.
Yeah,
you had
the picture,
a rendering
if you
of
go
the
to the loose drawing right here,
thing.
those walls are, I'm going to say, aren't exactly 5 feet. I like to pop them up over the gates a couple inches for articulation, so they're going to probably be about 5'4" when it's all said and done, so that they have a little differentiation from the top of the steel. So they're only 5'4" tall.
And they are far down the drive, or are they at the
They're right
close
at
to
the
the
right at the
road?
bend.
They're pretty much right as the private driveway ends and makes the turn, with just enough space for somebody to pause there to operate the gates.
See, this is the lane right there?
Yes.
And then right as
Yes.
you get to the intersection of the properties, it turns.
Correct.
So that's what we're looking at.
Correct.
Okay.
So those gates are
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, other questions?
did you find out about the cubic yards?
No, I didn't translate that yet, and I'd have to look it up. But there's several truckloads that will have to come out of this site. They're not, according to this description, they're only using 10 cubic yards to fill, and the rest of it's going to come off.
They're 2 feet.
It's going to be distributed on site, it says here.
Yeah, we'd like to distribute this. We don't have a grading plan yet. We'd like to distribute as much on site, but really the site's very sensitive with lots of oaks, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. So the cleanest way to do it, and again, part of that cut is keeping these buildings as low as possible. So there's 6 to 7 foot of cut in the back of the master bedroom. There's about 5 foot of cut in the back of the accessory building. So they're really nestled in, and I think they're going to be very stealth-like. And in a response to one of the concerns about trying to push this building, I don't know what
direction, the other direction.
this way. Well, if we do that, we're going to be impacting the existing oaks that are there, and we really worked hard to weave in and out of the oak canopy to save every tree but one small one at the pool area. So that placement is key.
Okay. Okay, other questions? Okay, then let's go to comments. Again, we can take any action we choose to do. This can get project design approval with comments. It can get project design approval without comments. It could just get comments. And there's probably not enough information here to give a final approval.
Yeah, I have comments, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. I think it's a really well-designed project. I think the fact that you're one story, you're keeping it one story, you definitely could have made it a 2-story. So so I think as far as the scale goes, I think you've kept that. It's appropriate. I think a lot of what the neighbors are bringing up it's not of my purview. My purview is size, bulk, and scale and appropriateness. And I think one of the goals of a good architect is to, if you're doing an addition, to make it look like it's not an addition. And I think you've achieved that very well. I think you've maintained the integrity and the vocabulary of the existing building. And I think getting rid of the T111, the sooner you do that, the better, especially in an area like that. So I really have no problem with it. I can support the project. I think everything about it is highly appropriate, very sensitive, and very well done.
I agree completely with my colleague. I think it's a beautifully designed project. I think you've been extremely sensitive to the site, and I can definitely support the project.
Okay, other comments?
I
agree with that.
I agree too. Is there anything we can do to alleviate some of the concerns about the noise or anything from the air conditioner?
Well, I would like to address it. I think that we might be able to find a different location for the air conditioning unit, or dealing with closing it, or getting the acoustics to not go up that hill. So I think that needs some exploration. Just an explanation on the pool. I know that, he left already. He left already. It's not that the board isn't concerned about pools. We don't have that. The city council and city attorney and staff have told us we don't have any say about whether folks can have pools or not have pools. That's not within our abilities. We can address the aesthetics of the pool. We can address the location of a pool. On some occasions, we've been able to address the size of the pool. But until council gives us direction and they move to the next phase of drought, addressing the drought issue, we have no direction at this point from council. So we continually have to allow review of swimming pools. So that's really not something that we can deal with. We've expressed our concern to council about the continuing approval of pools, but again, that's at the city council level. But I want to go to the pool because having gone out, I was out at the site on Saturday, and the other neighbor was actually out working in his yard as I came up the roadway. This folk out here, I assume it was the neighbor. And what struck me about all these homes in here, none of them have fences. It's just open. And now you're introducing a fence. And so I'm a little concerned. And I understand why you're introducing the fence, so forth and so on, in that picture. But it starts to, in my view, kind of diminish the compatibility with the immediate neighborhood. And previously, when the other project came here, when it was just the bedroom addition, I think my comment was, this is one of those rare properties you can't see from most anywhere. And the two upper houses may have a way to see these, but in general, the public can't see this. You can't see it. Unlike other things on the Riviera or up in that area where we look at them, we can see properties from across the canyon, whatever. This is one of those rare properties you can't really see to any big extent by certainly by the general public at all. But the fact is, there is this feeling that I think everyone enjoys about this little enclave of trees and so forth. So, and I understand clearly you have to have a fence, you have to have a barrier if you have a swimming pool. But I'm not sure that the fence location that's being proposed now is appropriate. I think one could see some kind of fencing element, maybe it doesn't have to look like a fence, that could get much tighter around the site and do away with this fence, which I think is being introduced in this particular street, in this little particular enclave of homes, as kind of being opposite to anything that's there. There are no other fences. Everybody just is open. In fact, it was kind of interesting when the fellow was out there working in his yard. As I drove by, I thought, well, maybe I'm driving into his property, but then I realized he actually has an entrance down here in a separate little driveway. So this road is to get to that house and to this house. This house actually there's another little pavilion out here somewhere, as I recall. Quite handsome little house. So that's the one concern. Otherwise, I agree with my colleagues. I think the approach is appropriate, the placement is appropriate. In this particular case, on this site, I don't have a problem with this 500 square foot pavilion or additional building, as I did with the previous application. So in general, I think it's doing all the right things. Particularly trying to make this all work amongst the existing oak trees is probably very, very important, so it really doesn't start to diminish any of that canopy that everybody enjoys now. But I am concerned about the location of the fence, and I think I would urge the applicant to restudy the whole fence issue, but that's what I'm looking at.
Can I have a quick 30-second response to that?
Let me finish comments from the board first.
Sure.
Does anyone else have comments?
Well, I think
Go ahead.
that is a really valuable point to make about the neighborhood character and the animals that live there and what people expect in terms of the natural experience.
So that's, Bernie, what I was getting at. You realize they have to have a fence. If they have a pool, they have to have a
Right.
fence. And they've got deer and they've got wild animals, and you certainly don't want a deer landing in the pool. So there's a whole reasons, but I just think the fence thing, in my view, needs to be restudied.
Can they do like a pool cover?
Well, no. You had, by code, you have to have the
a
fence. So
anyway.
you need to have a fence. I just think, in my view, the fence is not in the right place yet. But anyway, you have a comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked on the design review committee at the Hollister Ranch, and as you know there, you have to maintain a certain amount of maximum fence area to maintain the agricultural integrity of the property. Number one, this is a private property here. I do respect the bucolic nature and open aspect of this meadow, but we're really compressing the fence line in quite a bit on this 1 acre property right now to just kind of capture this area right here in a way that's not offensive to this big expenditure and improvement for the property. The fence is handsomely designed. It's a rusty steel mesh that's open at 3-inch square. The columns will be like this, so it's basically going to disappear. It's not a chain link fence. It's not what you typically see.
I don't have a problem with the architecture of the fence at all.
So
I just have
we've
a
held
problem
it
with
in.
its location.
We've held it in really tight and actually taken advantage of the buildings as part of the fence so that it didn't extend up the slope and cut off that great wildlife corridor. Actually, when I was out there was a deer on your property who was watching me. I got a picture of him. He was right over here. There is an existing fence that wraps up this rear property line already. It's a wood fence. It's this kind of a vertical cedar split rail fence. We're planning on getting rid of that and cutting down the fence area. But I think it would be offensive, in my opinion, to have a fence right here, which is right next to the pool. It would feel like it's a compound or an apartment complex. And I want to keep it out of here and have the landscape work on both sides to conceal it.
Can I ask a question? Where does it go on the other side of the gate, like on this? Yeah.
Well,
Where does
yeah,
it go? Because we couldn't find
on this. Yeah, on this, it's sort of ambiguous right now because I need to
you have a
solve
full
it.
site?
Yeah, there is a full site plan.
I didn't see that
It's
area either, so I wasn't
yeah,
sure
it's
where
heavily. There's heavy. I'm going to call them hedges, but it's heavily treed right here. It's kind of hard to see if there's even a fence in there right now. But our proposal is to get it and kind of end at the building.
At the building.
Yeah, that's what we want to do and open this up. There's a series of beautiful trails up here and little outlooks that are part of the.
And then it wraps behind the accessory building. Is this line here is the fence? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're tucking it in and trying to sort of maintain a sort of manicured area as opposed to a wildlife.
So you're
area.
not fencing the entire property.
No. No.
Okay.
Okay, other comments? Okay, then the chair will look for a motion. As I say, we can give it comments only, we can give it project design approval with comments, we can give it project design approval without comments, and if you choose to give it an action of design approval, then you want to, in your motion, make clear whether it's coming back to the full board or to consent calendar.
Okay. I move to give this project design approval, and with coming back to the full board for final. And I'd like to make the final finding, these findings that this architecture has consistency in appearance, that the development is consistent with the scenic character of the neighborhood, it's compatible with the neighborhood in size, bulk, and scale, and has quality architecture and materials.
Okay, that's your motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'd like to
suggest
to the maker of the motion a comment about relocating the air conditioning and the pool equipment.
And if the applicant could please consider relocating the air conditioner and testing it for decibels. Perhaps the newer ones are much quieter. And also consider the location of the pool equipment so that it's a good neighbor, so that you'll be consistent with good neighbor policy.
Okay. Okay. Is that acceptable to the seconder? Yes. Okay. So that's the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Just so you know, I will be voting against the motion because I feel that the fence is inappropriately addressed. Okay. Any other Comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Abstentions? So carried, and we'll see you back here.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Is there any further business to the Single Family Design Board of Monday, August 22nd? Seeing none, the chair will adjourn.